those laws in Hebrew. We don't want to read those laws. We don't want to read any of that. We want to create our own fantasy about this situation.
And that's why when y'all hear me talk, it's not about me hating the Bible or hating those who believe it. I love my brothers. I love y'all who believe that, my sisters who believe it.
Yeah.
It's just that I challenge the information that's in the book. And if y'all could prove me wrong, then prove me wrong without getting upset. When you read about the Bible, when you read about God and the devil in the Bible, you're reading simply about human beings. Simple as that. Look at it like that. You are reading about human beings.
And they friends.
Humans is God. Humans is the devil. We have that inside of us. I've been saying that for years, brother. You have a higher self and you have a lower self. You have a duality that exists within all humans. We have the capability of being wicked as hell, as being evil, and we also have the capability of being good.
You're saying God is good?
Angel. No, I'm talking about your actions, the way your actions are. Because what may be good to you, Reggie, could be bad for someone else.
Certainly.
All right. So that's what I'm talking about. So that right there, when you really look at it in a nutshell and go deeper, that don't even exist. Good and bad really don't even exist.
Nope.
See, this is why I like universal law. Cause see, I try not to believe anything, but if I'm gonna believe something, it has to be true with everyone. It's got to be true everywhere at all times. If not, it's just an opinion. And I think that's where people get lost when they start dealing with the Bible, because I'll be looking at it and I'm like, just like Saul said, I don't hate the people who follow it. My mother follows it, right? I don't hate the people who like it or read it. But when they get to the point where they saying, oh, well, this is why God, hubba, they trying to justify. They trying to rationalize. They trying to make it know the history. But see, that's what I mean, Reggie. So what I'm saying is, like, when they get to that point, that's where me and them break off. Because I can just simply say, nah, that part of the Bible right there, that's effed up or that's wrong. And it don't mean that I'm taking away from God, because I understand that a man wrote it. But if you are looking at it only from the lens of belief, they can't separate it, because they have to keep saying God wrote it, God wrote it, God wrote it. And they trying to justify why God might have said something, even though it's effed up. They trying, and it's like, no, if you like us, you can see that part where he told Moses to hop out of the bushes and rape and kill and commit genocide. And we can just say that was a man who wanted other men to commit rape and genocide, and he used the Bible. You see what I'm saying? But they don't want to look at it that way. So they trying to look at it and say, why would God have wanted?
That's why we need to study. We need to start talking, do shows on the history of the people of the Bible, not the Bible. So when you ask the Hebrews and the Hebrew Israelites and the Christians, let's look at the history of the people. Forget the Bible, right? Let's just look at who they were, why and how did they get these scripts? Where did these scripts come from? And so Jabari should be able to do a good job if he goes into history, because they can't prove anything. The only thing that what biblical figure can they prove besides Hezekiah? And I'm not so sure Hezekiah is truly a biblical figure. But he's in the Bible. But what?
Let me know if you're ready, Cam G.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Do you want to start all over, Sa? Do you want to start the show?
No, I don't want to start it all over. I'm gonna go. We're gonna go. And I'm gonna tell you something, man. Yeah, go ahead. Say that again, Reggie.
No. So what we need to do is we need to look at the history of biblical figures. And so those people, they always go back to the Bible, but they never ever go to history.
Reggie, did you hear, Reggie, about the 4-year-old girl that got caught up in the fire in the Bronx and she died? This was yesterday. It was yesterday.
No.
Right up in, I think it was in the Bronx, if I'm not mistaken. She got caught up in the fire. Couldn't get down the stairs because she was blocked. And she was by herself, a 4-year-old girl, man.
That's hard.
Beautiful little girl. Yeah. So her teacher was crying, had to go and tell the students that you won't be seeing so-and-so. And she had to break it down. It was on New York One. They was breaking that down. So I asked the question to all the Hebrews, was that God doing? And why did God kill that little girl? See, when you ask a question like that, Reggie, they say, well, nah, man. First of all, their teachings is God does everything. God is the one that kills, and he does all of that. So if you ask them, why did God kill that little girl? They would probably say because of what her parents did in their life.
Yeah,
Something
she
like
was at a camp. If she was with one of those camps, right, she would have survived. That's what they would say, right?
Yeah. But in the Bible, it says one man's sins can't pay for another one. You know what I'm saying? It tells you all of that. But anyway, let me bring on my guest speaker today, Cam G. Kim J. I keep forgetting.
Like Cam G. Cam G is a good Cam G.
All right, Cam. Yeah. I got my brother Cam G in the building, and we're about to get it in. SD, you got to cam up so I can know who you are, brother. I don't know who you are.
Yeah, shout out to Sunnetter for inviting me on this great platform. Shout out to all my folks, in the building, Magi Archers in the building. Even shout out to my haters and the enemies in the great tradition of Malcolm X. I got to shout out the enemies because they are definitely watching.
That's right. So let's get it in.
So we're going to talk about, the Diopian revolution, Pan-African nationalism in modern Africa. See, a lot of people, they doubt. They say there ain't no Pan-African nationalism. Africans aren't doing anything, to fight imperialism. There's no history of African unity. We've always been divided. Everybody always makes those claims. These tribes that we have, they've always existed. They've existed since even the Paleolithic. I heard people even try to make that argument. But, we're going to go over why it's essentially false. And, for this presentation, this is a little bit different than my previous presentations in the sense that the sources that I'm going to use are going to be at the very, very end, right? So you're going to have to wait till the very, very end to see the compilation of books and articles that I have to present this information. But, we're going to basically go in and give you a new side of Cheikh Anta Diop, right? One of the most important things to understand is the fact that Diop's research, the geopolitical implications of his research are what people often miss. They miss the fact that he was a political activist. They miss the fact that the impetus behind his work was for the total liberation of the African world, the entire Black world. That's why many of the Eurocentrists and the Europeans opposed his work. That's also why somebody said you spell modern wrong. Oh, modem. But that's also why some of the white Arab propagandists, the white nationalist propagandists opposed Diop. They opposed Diop because of the political implications of his work, of his research, giving Black people agency, giving Black people a voice in the modern world, allowing Black people to remove the tentacles of exploitation that exist on the African continent. That is the most controversial element of Diop when he says that Kemet is a Black civilization. Because a lot of people, they want to focus on the hieroglyphs and they want to focus on the Medu Neter and just the different mysticism, but they ignore the elements of industrialization and modernization that Diop was pointing towards when he positioned the civilizations of classical Africa as the apex of African traditions and African cultures. So we're going to get into those implications today. So this is a brief biography of Cheikh Anta Diop, right? He was a member of the Murid Brotherhood. Assalamu alaikum to all my Muslim brothers and sisters and my brothers and sisters from Senegal who follow various, Sufi and Islamic adjacent traditions. The Murid Brotherhood was a relatively secret society among the Wolof people, that is believed to descend or believed to have gone back to the Wallo kingdom, right, of ancient Senegambia, and possibly earlier. And one thing that Cheikh Anta Diop learned as a young man, he was educated in the African political historical dynamics at a young age. He was deeply educated and deeply knowledgeable about African history from his education in the Murid Brotherhood, right? Now, a lot of the haters of Cheikh Anta Diop, they always talk about, okay, we are West African. We are not from the East. We're from the West. We're from the West. We're from the West. Well, Diop is a West African. He speaks or spoke multiple West African languages. He was educated within a West African traditionalist society. So his entire education was deeply ingrained within a West African consciousness, particularly in the Megalayan, which is the past 4,200 years, right? Now, the difference between Cheikh Anta Diop and a lot of the neophytes who, they levy this, juvenile criticism against Diopian scholarship is they're unaware of a scholar, a Wolof scholar in the 19th century by the name of Yoro Diao. And Yoro Diao was a royal of the Wallo who documented, these Nile Valley migrations into the Senegambian region. He documented the ancestral filiation of these Senegambian populations and the populations of classical Africa, right? And this is the predecessor. This is the traditional education that preceded Diop's professional research as a historian, as an archaeologist, as a linguist, et cetera, et cetera. So Diop was pivotal in the growth of Pan-Africanism on a, global stage. He organized the Paris's first Pan-African Congress in 1951. This is in the 1950s, right? When Black people were still, living in the United States in a segregated situation. You had the white only and you had colored only, all that type of stuff. Around the same time, he was organizing a Pan-African Congress in Paris, in Paris, right? And from 1950 to 1953, he was the Secretary General of the Rassemblement Démocratique Africain, or the organization, the Democratic Organization of Africa, right? He also, in 1956, he participated in the first Congress of Black artists and writers. So he was deeply incorporating literature and liturgy within the organization of African people, because he understood that retaining a lot of these classical sources of literature were key to reconstructing African memory in the modern world. His PhD dissertation on the African influences of European culture and civilizations was accepted in 1960 after being rejected in 1951. So his dissertation was rejected in 51, and he had to wait 9 years, and he was organizing and he was battling, he was publishing text. He continued to put in work until his research was accepted in 1960. Now, a lot of people, if they got rejected, they would just go home, they would just give up, they would just, not even try. But he was so dedicated just to the legacy and the memory of African people that he fought hard. And a lot of this was the acceptance came after he published Nation Nègre et Culture, Black Nations and Culture in 1955. And from that pressure, it was a widely acclaimed text. From that pressure, they were forced to accept his dissertation, for fear of further political ramifications. Now, in 1960, in Senegal, Diop was appointed a research fellow at Institut Fondamental d'Afrique Noire, or IFAN, or the Fundamental Institution of Black Africa, at Dakar University, where he set up a radiocarbon dating laboratory. This is in 1960, right? So in 1960, Diop is already dealing with the incorporation of what Western scholars call hard sciences into the research of African history and African civilization. And again, for those who may claim that Diop was a Hermeticist, an advocate of culture historical archaeology, this is completely false. Because in the 60s, this is at the time that archaeology was experiencing what was called, the logical positivist phase, or the phase where they remove some of the normative inferences of, colonial archaeology and the culture historical period, dominated by individuals such as Grafton Elliott Smith, dominated by, arguments such as diffusion and migrationism, articulated by some of the great Hermeticists. But Diop was responding to that with physics. He was responding to that with radiocarbon dating. He was responding to that with archaeometrics in 1960, when most Black people, when most white people didn't even know that these things existed. He was well up to date and well ahead of his time in incorporating this into the research of African history. And then in 1961 and 1963, he was the founder of Pan-Africanist political parties. He was deeply engaged in political activism. He created the Bloc de Masse Sénégalaise and the Front National du Sénégal, right? Designed to fight European imperialism on the continent. So he wasn't just engaged in daydreaming about the pharaohs all day. He was actively rooted within a scientific analysis, particularly archaeometric and physics analysis, while at the same time resurrecting African literature, while at the same time building political parties to fight against imperialism, right? Fighting against imperialism, right? And if you like what I see, I put my Cash App in the chat. I think it's going to come on my stream as opposed to Soneta's stream. But if you see this, you feel free to support $Kamjiverse. I'm giving you, some unheard of, and in many cases, most people don't know about this, the political legacy of Cheikh Anta Diop. Cheikh Anta Diop was heavily inspired by the Garvey movement. And the Rassemblement Démocratique Africain, like that was a Garveyite party, right? Partially inspired by the Prince of Dahomey, right? Prince Kojo of Dahomey, who worked deeply with Marcus Garvey and incorporated many of his teachings within Francophone Africa. Not that many people know that at the last period of Marcus Garvey's life, he was heavily, involved within the developments of Francophone Africa, because he thought that defeating France on the African continent was a key step in the road to liberation. And part of Garvey's work in that sense led to the development of scholars such as Cheikh Anta Diop. So now we have in 1966, the first World Black Festival of Arts and Culture held in Dakar, Senegal, honored Diop and W.E.B. Du Bois as scholars who exerted the greatest influence on African thought in the 20th century, right? So in 1971, Cheikh Anta Diop was elected vice president of UNESCO's Scientific Committee for writing a history of Africa. And then in 1974, a milestone occurred in the English-speaking world when The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality was finally published. It was also in 1974 that Diop and Théophile Obenga collectively and soundly reaffirmed the African origin of the pharaonic civilization at a UNESCO-sponsored symposium in Cairo, Egypt. And then in 1981, Diop's last major work, translated in English, Civilisation ou Barbarie, or Civilization or Barbarism, an authentic anthropology, was published. Cheikh Anta Diop was the director of Radiocarbon Laboratory at the Fundamental Institute of Black Africa, or Institut Fondamental Afrique Noire, IFAN, at the University of Dakar, right? So this is just the legacy of Diop from the first World Black Festival of Arts, Arts Festival, right, to him being elected vice president of UNESCO Scientific Committee of Writing of a History of Africa, to the publication of, African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, right? And then you got the UNESCO symposium that he did. And then just the Radiocarbon Laboratory in Dakar, Senegal, right? So we're going to get into, some of the elements of Diopian historiography. You got oral typology, understanding the typology of oral traditions, the extension area, the depth of knowledge, the quality of it, the context that it was given in. Oral history is a fundamental part of African historiography, because without oral narratives, there's no linguistic data. You don't have linguistic data without orature. And most written history is first oral before it's written down. So most scholars in the Western world and the African world believe in using oral history as a key component to the reconstruction of African memory. Then you got diachronic linguistics, right? Onomastics, these are just naming conventions, ethnonyms, and toponyms And then you have the typological, phonological, and morphological correspondences that unite different African language families. Then you're using cultural anthropology, methodologies based upon a multilineal socio-political and cultural environmental evolution of society. Diop heavily was involved in the evolutionary principles in the socio-political context, the cultural context, and an environmental context. And he established some correlation between internal and external events on the African continent, right? Then you got archaeometrics, which is super popular in Diopian historiography. And this is a quote from Cheikh Anta Diop. It introduces brutal certainty, where there was only doubt, skepticism, or speculation. Its results ruin everyday dogmas based on unscientific notions of historical plausibility. It uses dating techniques, chemical analyses, and aerial photography. So these are just some of the basic components of Diopian historiography that make what he did worthwhile within the African world, right? So one major component of Diopian historiography is the historical comparative linguistic model that, according to Theophilo Benga heavily suggested that African people use the same model that was utilized to construct the Indo-European language family, as opposed to Afro-Asiatic, because the Indo-European language family was constructed using the conventional, accepted method of historical comparative linguistics. Afro-Asiatic has never been proven. None of the major language classifications have ever been proven. So one of the main elements of Diopian, historiography and the Diopian revolution is to understand that a lot of these labels that came to us via Greenberg, via these colonial, ethnographers, the Afro-Asiatic from Hamido-Semitic, Ethiopic, which became Cushitic, Negritic, which is now Negro or Niger Congo, Bantu, Nilo-Saharan, all of these different formalities from the colonial period are invalid because they use a method called mass comparison, which, the legendary linguist from UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, James Matisoff, called Columbo-cubiculomania, or the excessive need to classify languages and put them into pigeonholes. Diop didn't agree with that. He wanted to promote historical comparative linguistics. And him and Obenga, they were able to uncover 101 putative cognates that cut across Greenbergian boundaries, right? Some of the naming conventions that you see in ancient Africa is Black. You see African people defining themselves as Black. The chart on the right is from a scholar by the name of Dr. Obadele Cambone from the University of Ghana, linguist from the University of Ghana. And he finds African people who define themselves as Black, right? The Akan in Ghana, they say Obibini, and they define their land as Abibiman, Black people, the Black nation. You go over to the Yoruba of Nigeria, they use the term Adulawo, Adulawo, that is a Black human. And to define their nation, their ancestral land, they say Ile Adulawo, the land of Black people. In Bambara, in Mali, you have Farafin. That's a Black person.
Hold on. Stop, man. Stop, man, right now. Stop it right there. I have to stop you on that, man, because you know what we're going through for the past year right now with these pseudos talking about we never used the term Black. Of course we never did in English. We always had our own language. You know what I'm saying? But the way you breaking it down right now, that right there kills them with that nonsense.
Yeah, it kills them. It kills
I
them.
love it. Go ahead. Go in, man. Go in. So you're saying that we always said Black in our own language.
Yes. But the difference is we connected it to divinity, to cosmogony, to our origins.
Peace, brother.
Facts. We always knew this. In Bambara, in Mali, you say Farafin. Farafin, that's a Black person. And the land of Black people, or their land, is Farafina. Farafina. In Wolof, in Wolof, you have Nitkulul. Nit Kunul, that's a black person, Wolof in Senegambia. And then they called their land Rau Nit Kunul. Rau Nit Kunul. That is the land of black people, the nation of black people. In Kikongo, you have Ndombe. Ndombe. That is a black person. And then they called their nation, their land, Nsiya Bandombe. Nsiya Bandombe. Right? And that's, again, the land of black people. Igbo of Nigeria. You have Ndi Isi Oji. Ndi Isi Oji. That is a black person. And the nation of black people, the land of black people, is Ala Ndi Isi Oje in Igbo. Right? So the same thing, and I can even put one more. Medumba, Western Cameroon. Budnesen. Budnesen. Black person. Land of black people. Chabudnesen. Right? The same principles that you see in classical Africa, right? With the Remen Kimi, right? Met Remen Kimi, their language, and ancient Kimi exist in contemporary Africa in these languages. So according to the historical linguist like Sonoran, like Theophilo Benga, like Cheikh Anta Diop, right, like Musa Lam, etc., this is a valid field of inquiry, Pan-African linguistics, Paleo-African linguistics, in covering the bond between ancient and modern Africa. This is a principal component of the Diopian revolution and Diopian historiography. We always use black. We just connected it to divinity and to our divine or our cosmic, cosmological perspective. Because when the majority of the universe, and I got to get my dude Kiyama, astrophysicist, he's gonna come on soon. Shout out to him. But the majority of the universe, we can't even see. It's dark matter and dark energy. We can't even define it. So of course it's black. Of course it's black when you all boil down to it. Our ancestors knew what they were talking about. And none of this is on accident. Right? Now you have Dr. Kwame Nantambu's iterations of Pan-African nationalism. Because according to certain individuals, there is no such thing. Oh, we weren't unified. There is no such thing as unification in the pre-colonial period. Well, that's anachronistic, they say. This is a PhD defining this. He finds iterations that led to the modern iteration of Pan-African nationalism. You got the first iteration, the unification of Kimi by Narmer, BCE, right, to the Common Era. Then you have the second iteration of Pan-African nationalism, and that's the establishment of Al-Andalus by the Amazigh, right, or the Moors from the 1st to the 15th century. And you can see that on the right here on this chart to the right. Then you got the third iteration, the resistance against enslavement from the 15th to 19th century. Believe it or not, many of the nations that we observe in Africa, from Ouagadougou or Ghana or Niani or Mali or Songhai, right, or Kanem, these are neo-pharaonic states, according to the African Union's fact book. Also, according to the research of the great elder Dr. John Henry Clark, when ancient Kimi was invaded by Eurasians, many of these pharaonic populations migrated west, and they're intermingling with the locals, right, that Dr. Kevin MacDonald from Cambridge defines as the West African microlithic techno-complex, the intermingling of those two populations, right, from about 4,000 to 1,500 years ago, resulted in the establishment of these empires on the Jaliba River Valley or the Niger River Valley in Ouagadougou, Niani, Songhai, etc., Futaturo, etc. Then you have the fourth iteration of Pan-African nationalism. This is the intellectual, scientific, and cultural emanation of modern Pan-Africanism, from Delaney, from Edward Blyden, from Henry Holland Garnett, from Africanus Horton, right, from Shaka Zulu, from Ibrahim Boumbouandjoua, right, and all of the different scholars, the different historical figures that we honor. They're deeply ingrained within this emanation from classical Africa to modern times. So there are major periods of Pan-African nationalism, according to the scholarship of Dr. Kwame Nantambu, in the development of Pan-African nationalism. Then you have Van Horn from the University of Wisconsin, and he defined Africology Africology as a method of studying these different parameters within the African world. And what Dr. Van Horn defined Africology as, Africology is the study of the centrality of Africa in the emanation of Homo sapiens sapiens as sentient beings capable of constructing concepts of right and wrong, right? And these terms are not used here as solely ethical, moral ones, but they're capable of constructing concepts of right and wrong, which guide life-preserving contra life-destroying behaviors that have been and are transmitted transgenerationally, transmillennially, and universally, right? And this theory involves four interlocking forces from Van Horn's analysis: the behavioral force, the leadership force, the educational force, and the resource force. And all of these are incorporated into his analysis of Africology, right? So now you have the socio-political evolution of African states. And one of the scholars who identified this is another, contemporary and student of Cheikh Anta Diop called Prince Dikakwa Nyambonambela. And he's from the Sawa people of southern Cameroon. And he has a text called Les Descendants des Pharaons à travers l'Afrique. And that is the descendants of the pharaohs throughout Africa. And he documents the emanation of these pharaonic populations throughout the African continent. And he also documents the evolution of African societies and the African mode of production. Believe it or not, African states do not follow the same trajectory as states in other parts of the world. There's specific development modes that can be seen within African societies. And according to Dikakwa, you see the pre-state or the proto-state, which you may define Ouagadougou, or not Ouagadougou, the Tichit culture as an example of a pre-state, or which is a complex society. The Nok in northern Nigeria would be another example of this, or the Gajigana culture. Basically, these complex cultures that are right before the development of the state. Then you have the state, which would be ancient Ghana or Ouagadougou. Then you have super states, which would be, extra regional civilizations and institutions. And then you have the pan states, which you could say that the Christendom or the Christian world is an example of that. The Islamic world could be an example of that, or basically a society that transcends the boundaries nationally and is more so speaks to what people's perspective eschatologically or eternally are, right? So Ifa would be an example of a pan state, because you have Ifa in the United States with the Oyotunji village in South Carolina. You have emanations of it in Santaria in Cuba. You have Umbanda and Candomblé in Brazil. You have, Ifa in Yoruba nation, obviously, and other areas of the world. So the pan state would be the highest form of development of, African typology. So now we're going to get into the parameters of the two-cradle model. A lot of people they're unaware of Diop's analysis of the cradles, they misinterpret what he meant. They misinterpret, and shout out to Graphy in the chat, my Graphy folks in the chat, shout out to the Bamoons, the T-Cars, the Bamandas out there, my Bami's out there, shout out to y'all, right? But people misinterpret Diop when you spoke about the two cradles of civilization. And the most important element of the cradles were the environmental aspects. So these are the environmental elements that document, right, the differences between the cradles of civilization. One parameter is access to natural resources, right? That's a huge element of civilizations that people ignore, because your access to natural resources is going to determine the philosophy, right, that you incorporate within your, societal processes. Then it's hydrological proximity. Again, your access to water is going to determine your transportation methodology. It's going to interpret, how you can trade with your neighbors. It's going to interpret, the type of cuisine that you have, the type of tools that you use, from aqualithic tools or tools for fisheries. So that's another important aspect. Then you're going to deal with solar duration, how long the sun is out, how strong the sun is. And that's going to determine, whether or not you are going to be a mobile culture or a culture that has access to certain agricultural industries, et cetera, et cetera. The geotechnical conditions, whether you have a lot of earthquake or seismicity in your region, that's another important element. The glaciations, we all know that glaciations determine so many different things in the environment. And we're currently in a glaciation, but prior to this, we had what's called the African humid period in the Green Sahara. And the Green Sahara would be a predecessor, one of the primary predecessors of the Pharaonic civilization. And then precipitation is another one. How much precipitation that you receive, and that also is incorporated within your agricultural cycle and your water, your hydrological cycle as well. So these are some fundamental elements of the two-cradle model. For those who criticize the two-cradle model and they don't deal with this, they don't deal with these facts, they're not engaged in an accurate analysis whatsoever. Shout out to Reggie. Save our Reggie in the build. And I gotta say to, I think it's my sis Keon White. She said I had to Google damn near every word he been saying. We want to raise the consciousness over here on Sinetta TV, Sinetta University. These are pros.
Yes, I am very thankful for this brother, man, for real, man. Because Reggie was right on point. He is bringing powerful information, y'all. Information that we never heard of. And so that's why to some of y'all, it may be boring because y'all used to the screaming and the yelling and not getting nothing really across. But this brother is like a professor right now, and he's teaching in a professor's class. So that's the difference. Continue, brother. I love it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's my purpose. And I got some of my folks, some of my folks in the build. I always like, my heart is warmed when I see like a Bamalake or a Bamoon or a T-Car in the chat. Shout out to y'all. And we got all the Africans, all the Black world in the building, all over the world. I think I see Asaram Ka in the building. I see the Magi Archers in the building. Like, this is exciting.
Oh, man, hold on. My man Magi is in the building?
Yeah, I saw Smash earlier. Smash is in the building.
Rockwell is in the building. Yo, brother, where was you at when we was having these fights with the Kemet is not black and all this stuff, man? Because you could have came in and crushed it.
Yeah, he was on tour. No, Smash did his thing. Smash got those 10, professionals and Egyptologists to say that Kemet was black, and that's all we needed.
Yeah, right. That's facts. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, for sure. So these are other elements of other parameters of the cradles, so the two cradles. You have modes of sustenance or modes of survival. And another thing to note is that the cradles are not necessarily they're not universal in the sense that every single aspect of these regions, was articulated based upon these different modes. It's more so these are tendencies. So you have a southern cradle tendency with respect to these parameters and a northern cradle tendency. The tendency in the southern cradle of the Happy River Valley was that it was built upon around agricultural settlements. That's the tendency. The northern cradle tendency among the Eurasian steppes was represented by the Yamnaya culture, and it consisted of warlike, nomadic pastoralists. And not a lot of people know, but when you're looking at the Indo-Europeans or the Indo-European civilizations, geneticists, archaeologists, and linguists have determined that the Yamnaya civilization, right? The Yamnaya civilization represents the ancestor of all Indo-European people, from northern India to Iran and Afghanistan to Europe, right? So that aspect of the cradles have been confirmed. The other aspect is the idea of the Pharaonic civilization and its predecessors, like the Cadin culture and the Apkian culture, representing the primary ancestors of the southern cradle. That's been confirmed genetically when you look at certain subclades of EM2 and EM35. And it's also been confirmed archaeologically if you examine Dr. Abubakari Musa Lamb's spatiotemporal evolution of the material cultures, particularly in Western and Central Africa, but also throughout the African continent, being built on pharaonic prototypes, right? So then you have the methods of the African mode of production, and you're going to see these 5 methods within African economies developed in the pre-colonial period. You have the universal commons, right? Generalized labor or corvée labor. You see that in the construction of the Men's Dam, by Narmer. You also see it in Siad Barre's revolution, right? In his development of Somalia, as well as Bamileke, Jangwi, like the Jangwi system of the Bamileke, also follows these generalized labor parameters. Then you have the domestic economy in rural regions, or the familial economy. The idea of a metropole, the metropole, like New York is a metropole, LA, Detroit, Chicago. The metropole as a focal point of the economy is also something that originated in Africa. Then you have the private sector with cultural regulations. That's another element that originated and is part and parcel of the African mode of production, right? So you don't necessarily see these things within Eurasian economies. And this is another indication of the validity of the two-cradle model. Now we're looking at kinship systems. And again, these are tendencies. They're tendencies, not necessarily universal, but they're tendencies, meaning that originally the Northern Cradle is patriarchal, with only a proto-term for father observed in Indo-European. And this is from the research of Dr. Troy Allen, who was a student of both Diop and Obenga. And he used historical comparative linguistics and the research of one of Theo Obenga's teachers in Europe, Émile Bienveniste, when they say they don't have a proto-term. Indo-European, they didn't have a proto-term reconstructed for mother. They only had a discernible proto-term for father in Indo-European, which is indicative of a primarily patriarchal kinship system. Then you got the Southern Cradle and its matrifocal and with harmonious dualism, with proto-terms for mother and father in Paleo-African. And then philosophical view, the Southern Cradle produced a society with an interdependent universe, sacred sense of being, communal values, and extrasensory conception of knowledge, whereas the Northern Cradle produces society based upon objectification, individualism, and materialism. And the economy that we have, capitalism, or the capitalist mode of production, being birthed from mercantilism, which was birthed from feudalism, the feudal mode of production, which came from the slave mode of production, which is built off of warfare communalism in ancient pre-Roman Europe. All of these things are birthed from the Northern Cradle. This is not necessarily an African economy based upon the principles that we have outlined before, right? They're different principles. So when you look at the tendencies of these civilizations, particularly rooted, as Dr. Troy Allen rooted it in historical comparative linguistics, it's undeniable that Diop's cradle model is validated. It's just simply undeniable. And you can see, in this right, the Minister of Agriculture next to a Beja gentleman, they look like twins. They look like twins. And for everybody in the building, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more content. Also my Patreon. We've been coming up with extra exclusive content on the Patreon. So if you want more where this is coming from, hit the sub button. I think somebody got my Cash App in the building.
Yeah. And family, please support this brother. As you can see, he's not with no foolishness. He's all strictly about bringing y'all information, digging up resources. I'm telling you, Reggie will tell you how tough it is to stay up late at night getting resources, getting information, so he can show you this the sources. Reggie does it all the time, and y'all not really taking care of him the way you're supposed to, So it is what it is. Support this brother, man. Please support this brother. Keep this brother around. Let's go, brother.
Absolutely. Because like Sonetta said, it's definitely difficult to be able to compile all this information. Like the pseudos, they just make it up. They just make it up as they go. And all they have to do is reach your emotional triggers and desire to be, something fanciful or whatever. And, they pretty much got you on lock. But this is real information, long nights of research and compilation. So I would appreciate any and all support, that the family has. So now we're going to get into some of the steps documented by Cheikh Anta Diop and his cultural basis for a federated state, dealing with African unity. The first step is to restore the consciousness of our historical unity. As I said before, a lot of people come with the pseudo idea that we were always divided. We were always divided. We never had unity in the past. Lies. And we're going to get into some of the examples of that. But thing about it is, if you don't believe in the historical evidence of African unity, then you're not going to agree with African unity in contemporary times. Because one of the main, some of the main people who promote tribalism, we were never unified. We were never. So to deal with the evidences of that and to restore the consciousness of that is paramount. Also, to work for linguistic unification on the territorial and continental scale. We got a lot of, brothers and sisters who disagree with the usage of Kiswahili continentally. But you have so many European languages, English, French, Portuguese, you have Arabic, all of these foreign languages, but nobody has a problem with these foreign languages. But one of the keys of unity is to bring back Hausa, bring back Yoruba, bring back Igbo, right? Bring back Kikongo and the languages where we specifically defined ourselves as Black people and we united around Black. That is such a key point to African unity. That's the second step, right? To bring it back and to unify linguistically. Third is to raise our national languages to the rank of governmental languages. You've seen this in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, where the leaders of the Alliance of Sahelian States are saying, hey, we're going to speak Mosi. We're going to speak Bambara. We're going to speak Fula. We're going to use our languages in the government. You're going to be able to apply for a visa in your language, get a passport in your language. You're going to be able to go to school in your language, write your dissertation and defend it in your language, go to the post office and mail in your language, use the internet and code in your language. That is key.
Question, brother.
Yeah.
Other than French, what other languages did Cheikh Anta Diop speak?
He was partially fluent in Arabic. He was fluent in Fulani. He spoke Bambara as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I said Arabic.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, Kiswahili, but I'd have to double check that.
Okay.
Also English. A lot of people don't know that he spoke English, but he wasn't confident in his ability to speak it scientifically. And then again, like with being part of the Moreed Brotherhood, most people in Senegambia, they will speak Wolof, Fulani, and Serer. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he spoke Serer as well. Shout out to Black to Egypt, Sekou in the building. Shout out to everybody in the building. Also, four, to work out an effective form of representation for the female sector of the nation. We never oppressed women. As we stated previously, Indo-European, they didn't even have a word for mother. They don't have a reconstructed word for mother in Proto-Indo-European. We always had it. Our civilizations, even some of the Abrahamic civilizations, we respected women. You have powerful Ethiopian queens, right? Powerful Amazigh queens. You have powerful, even in the Tuareg people. You have Muslim women who ran societies in ancient Mali, in ancient Mauritania. Queens like Nzinga, Mbuya Nahanda in Zimbabwe, Wuten or Betaka for the Tikar. So we've always had women in positions of authority, positions of influence. So we want to work out an effective form to represent women within our civilizations. That is a key to African unity. Without that, you cannot have any unity. It requires the incorporation, the empowerment of women in our society. I know a lot of brothers may feel, offended by that. They're weak, in my opinion. But
exactly.
We need our women. We need our women. Point blank. Without women, we're not even alive. Right? So, plain simple.
In the words of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, I do not want to be a king if it ain't no queen, brother. I don't want none of that. If it ain't no queen here, y'all can keep all that.
Facts. And I'm not going to get you into trouble, but in terms of the alphabet community, we already know the problems with that. So part of fixing that is rebuilding the relationship between men and women. That's it. That's it,
Yes, no doubt.
So moving on, we want to to live federal African unity, and again, that means Francophone Africa, Anglophone Africa, Christian Africa, Muslim Africa, atheist, Ifa, all the different forms of division. We want to build unity to, put those to the side. You pray to who you want to, you want to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want to pray to Jesus Christ, whatever it is.
I'm glad you said that, brother. Let me ask you, did your family grow up believing in Allah?
Well, I have in Cameroon, you have Islam and Christianity. So there are members of my family of both traditions. And my parents are also, they also participated in the traditional culture, because in most African civilizations and societies, there's not necessarily a rigid dividing line between, practicing something like Lakwa, which would be our variant of Ifa or Odinani or the Abasums. So, most, imams, they practice these traditions. Most pastors practice these traditions. Pastors have their own priests and priestesses on the side, right? And Dr. Jahi Issa would be able to speak to that in some of his.
What religion do you follow?
I follow the religion of African liberation, of African unity, and of Black power and Black pride. That's my religion.
Now, how do your parents look at you when you say that? Do they look at you like strange because, oh, you devil, you wrong, do they do that to you?
Well, they can't because if you look at the Bible narrative, or if you look at the Quran, you see, the Prophet Muhammad and his companions, peace be upon them, they're defined using the words like abyad and azwad, which are indicative of having a darker skin tone. The differences being a luminous skin tone versus a non-luminous skin tone. In the Bible, in Daniel 10:6, and in Revelations 2:15, you have the idea that Christ has skin like burnt bronze and hair like lamb's wool. So if you're against the mother and the father of civilization, if you're against what Kane Felder called Edenic, Dr. Kane Felder, who is the author of the African Heritage Study Bible, if you're against Eden, then you're against humanity itself. So you can't be for humanity and for the salvation of humanity, but be against the origin of humanity. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I want to ask you this before you get back to it. It's just a little off track. What is your perspective or your understanding of the Israelites when you look at them and you look at their teachings and they condemn all Africans as being savage? And not all Israelites do that, like not the Old Testament, but these Messianic Hebrew Israelites like Captain Tzoriak and a few of these Israelites that you see up here, they accuse the Africans of being not our people, of being wicked. What is your perspective of Israel?
They're historically ignorant. They don't know the Bible. They don't read the Bible. All of their patriarchs had African wives, so they mixed with them. Right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Even Ezekiel says that Jerusalem, your father and mother were a Hittite and an Amorite, so-called Hamite. Right. So it's like the idea that there's such a large separation, even if you go into the theological origins of Yehudim, being a class in ancient Kimi, and, Moses and Roger Sarba using African histories like Akhenaten and his imposed political exodus as a historical forerunner for the biblical text. And that could go on and on and on, but they don't know anything about history. They don't read the Bible accurately, and they just push propaganda, plain and simple.
All right, brother. That's what's up. Go ahead.
So, to oppose the creation of any white states on the continent. So, no Boer, West Cape, whatever. None of that. None of these Sandboer, all white states in Tunisia trying to deport black people. Some of the black people who've been in Tunisia since the beginning, right? Trying to deport the Imohag. Fundamental of African unity is to oppose the creation of white states on the continent. There will be no white states on the continent at all. We must prevent that. And we want to write a constitution to prevent the rise of an industrial bourgeoisie, right? Because we don't want an elite class of Africans to oppress the other Africans, right? We have to prevent that constitutionally. And somebody in the chat said, so basically Christianity is an African religion. Well, without St. Augustine, right, who defined original sin, without Tertullian, North African, without Origen, without Rakoti or Alexandria, the first theological school of Christianity, period, right, without these different, Nubadian monarchy traditions, which were the forerunners to the traditions of the Gospels and the disciples, shout out to Salim Fariji. Without these things, you don't have Christianity. The Hebrews didn't even have the concept of a Messiah before they came into Africa. So, yeah, if you want to legitimize it historically, you need Africa in order to have that faith tradition. Facts, right? And I don't want to get into the Walter Williams and the Osirian Serapis. That's a little bit too deep for this conversation. But yes, the Abrahamic faiths borrowed heavily, drew heavily. They used ancient Kemetic and African philosophy to articulate their theology, right? So this is another aspect of African unity that we need. And even if you want to say that Christianity is not African, they use, like, Jesus Christ was called the eternal Scarabaeus by one of the church fathers, right? And St. Ambrose actually said he was crucified in Egypt via a lynching, which is defined in Acts. But I don't want to get into a religious conversation. I don't want to get into that, right? Yeah. So, and again, you want to create a powerful state industry, giving primacy to industrialization, development, and the mechanization of agriculture. That's important. So you want to have state machinery to be developed, to be able to develop the civilization and industrialize the civilization, to be able to bring about, the renaissance of African society. You want to create a powerful modern army. That's super important, right? A powerful modern army is very, very, very important to be able to defend African societies. And we also need to create a technical institute, nuclear physics, chemistry, electronics, aeronautics, applied chemistry. These were the things that Cheikh Anta Diop was talking about. He wasn't daydreaming about the pharaohs and none of that. No, he wasn't doing that. He was not doing that whatsoever. He was talking about a renaissance, creating technical institutes, using science, building a modern army, state machinery. 12, the organization of cooperatives. 11, to reduce the luxurious living standards for politicians. He did not want politicians to be wealthier than the average person. He wanted them to have the basic lifestyle of the average everyday man and woman. That was Diop's goal. That's what he wanted. That is what he wanted. This is, again, from the cultural basis of the federated state. He wanted to create state farms to repopulate Africa, reinvigorate the Lake Chad Basin. Lake Chad is about 1/10 of the size it is. To regreen the Saharan zone, right? To greenify that, to stop the expanse of the desert. Establish a policy of full employment. He also wanted all African people to be fully employed, to have everything, none of these launderings and begging and all this type of stuff. I can say that because I got fam on the continent. Enough with the begging. Let's build. Let's employ our brothers and sisters throughout the African world. That's what Diop was dealing with. And we're moving towards that with the new revelations, right, that we're moving forward, that are happening in the Sahelian states, right? So again, we're going back to the cycles of state typology, and we use these indigenous North Africans as an example of this, right? So an example of a pre-state that we discussed before would be the Imohag, which is a lineage-based ethnarchy or a ruler of a city quarter, right? And this is dealing with the development of African states. Then you have a territorial state like Mauritania. And this is a kingdom, nation, or federation. You say, is this brother African, or he wants to colonize Africa? I think Africa, if Africa is take over, it should be taken over by revolutionaries and not sellouts, step and fetch it, right? So you got the territorial state, Mauritania. That's a kingdom, nation, or federation. Then you got a super state, and this is the Maghreb would be an example of this in North Africa, right? And these are interregional states or international empires. Then you have a pan state, again, which the Islamic world will be an example of that. The Christian or Christendom could be an example of that. The Ifa world could be an example of that. This is a universal empire. It's a divine empire. And when I say black, when Saneda asked me, what's my religion, I'm talking about black. I'm dealing with the origin of the universe. I'm dealing with that dark matter and dark energy. I'm dealing with that nine ether. I'm dealing with that melanin, right? So when you talk about pan state, universal empire, or divine empire, that's what we got. That's essentially what we're dealing with when we talk about the development of state typology on the continent. So again, we're going back to evidences of unity in pre-colonial Africa, pre-colonial unity of African territories. These pleasantry alliances that you see within African civilizations, they're based upon familial ties and cousinage bonds, right? Some people also call them joking alliances, where you may have a Soninke and a Malinke get together and establish a Sanankuya and joke about some of their histories and some of their ancestors and be able to unify based upon a common bond, right? And these are continuations of the Pharaonic civilization. You have Avuso as an example of this, and this is compiled by Dr. Jacques Bertrand Molly. You have Manjara and Lo, Hulari and Sanankuya, and these are just examples of pleasantry alliances that existed interregionally on the African continent. And this is actually used as a blueprint for modern African unity, right? And again, this isn't for those who talk about, it ain't never been no unity in pre-colonial Africa. You have this compilation by Dika Akwanyam Bonambela, and he's speaking about the Wangara inter-empire across the Sahelian zone. Fascinatingly enough, interestingly enough, some of the same nation states along this Sahelian zone are unifying today in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. In this particular chart, you have among Wangara from the 7th to 11th century, these states existed. You have Ngalam along the Senegal River Valley, predominantly based upon economic filiation, Zagara along the Lake Chad Basin, primarily featuring political orientation. Then you have Tajara, along the Happy River Basin, which was more so of a religious or theological filiation. And you can see polities like Kukia, Bundu, Damgaram, Bilma, for those who are familiar with these Western and Central African states historically, Dendi, the Masi, Darfur, you can see them within, these different regions. So again, this is an example of pre-colonial African unity that followed the Pharaonic civilization, right? You have from the 7th to the 11th century, Africans coming together, building unities based upon common bonds and common perspectives and common objectives. And as I stated before, you got the alliance of the Sahelian states building upon these traditions of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. And they're forming alliances to fight invasion of the imperialists and also terrorism, 100%. So they're carrying on the tradition in the modern world, despite what people may want to say about, they're funded by Russia. They're funded by China. It's a better system than French control, than imperialist control. And for the most part, the evidence shows that they're on the right track. The evidence shows that they're actually putting their resources where their mouth is. They're indigenizing the civilization. They're bringing back indigenous languages. They're building up the infrastructure. They're fighting terrorism. So the evidence shows that they're on the right track. That's what the evidence shows. For all of the critics. So let's get into, Burkina Faso. September 30th, 2022, you had a coup d'etat. Then you had Damiba. He was the interim president. He was removed from power because he was the first coup leader. He was removed because he had an inability to handle the insurgency. Right? And then you have Ibrahim Traore, and he assumed the role of interim leader after he took power, right? So again, you had Damiba came to power 8 months earlier. It wasn't working at all. And then Ibrahim Traore came to power to basically seal the deal and get the job done. And there's been an escalation of different fighters that we all know are puppets from the Western world. We all know that. We all know that. And yeah, he was another puppet. Yeah, Damiba was another puppet. Shout out to New Africa in the chat, right? So this has been an epicenter, and Ibrahim Traore so far is doing a great job, in continuing the revolution. He's doing an amazing job. Then you have Niger again, July 2023, the Presidential Guard in Niger, they launched a coup and detained President Mohamed Bazoum, right, and his family. And you had senior branches formed the junta, and they named the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, CNSP, and then they announced the seizure of power. And in the beginning, it was a little bit of a mixed response, but in the end, the people supported the revolution, right? So again, you have Niger along the same path. And interestingly enough, yes, a lot of these people, a lot of these coup leaders, they did receive training in the West. Yes. But just like Mugabe, just like, what's another example of this? Mugabe is a very prominent example. I'm thinking of Idi Amin. You have these leaders who were trained. They were trained, by the West, but then they used their power to basically build a self-sustaining revolution within their home country, right? So Niger and the revolution in Niger would definitely be an example of this. Then you have Mali. Mali's had tons of coups. You had a military coup back in 2012. And then you have the Azawad, which are the Tuareg who want to break off from Mali, right? Which, they've been, because of Islamic extremism on their part, and this was partially being instigated by the West, they had a lot of issues dealing with the Azawad region of Mali, right? So then you had nonviolent protests for months, right? And in 2020, they had a coup composed of Keita, the ruler, the ruling leader in his party, opposition, right? And there are many civil society organizations, and then followers of Imam Mahmoud Dicko demanded Keita's resignation, highlighting governance failures and corruption. So again, Mali follows a similar trajectory in the sense that there's a lot of unrest. It's a lot of terrorism, a lot of problems, people upset with the level of insecurity. So now you have Assimi Goïta, the leader of Mali, basically moving things towards a more so Pan-Africanist path and moving things towards a path where the people can have an independent rule separate from the imperialists, right? Chiani in Niger, Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, they all follow in the same path of liberation. So now we got the crisis in Sudan. You got a conflict starting in April 15, 2023. There's been like 15,000 people killed, and then you got over 8 million people displaced, the world's largest and worst displacement crisis. 2 million fled to Chad, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. You got food insecurity and aid, please, but African problems will be solved by African people. In Sudan, if Sudan is fixed, this could be the next step, right, across the Sahel and maybe even into other parts of the continent of opposing imperialism, of bringing forth what Diop wanted to bring forth in terms of the liberation of the African continent and the independence of Africa from these imperialists. So Sudan is a situation that we have to pay very, very close attention to, along with the other elements of the African continent. Congo is another one. Cameroon is another one with elections coming up. So we have to pay close attention. And by the way, there's been other, like Gabon, this is a palace coup. The president of Gabon is close to the leaders of France. And then you have Guinea, which Guinea has kind of been back and forth. On one hand, they side with the Sahelian states, and on the other hand, they're kind of, fence riding. And Senegal president as well. You have other African leaders, playing their position and trying to, reach use maximum leverage in the situation, but the impulse and the tendency is to move towards the direction of revolution. So then these are other aspects of Sudan, and these are the two sides. You have the Sudanese armed forces led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Then you have the rapid support forces led by Mohammed Hamdan Hameti Dagalo. Right, mediation efforts have been unsuccessful, and again, it's just a long fighting past, long trajectory of just different sectarian conflicts instigated by the West. From South Sudan's independence to just the fracture of both South Sudan and Sudan, and the fighting that's persisting in Khartoum. We love Sudan. We have great love for our people in Sudan and across the African continent, and we just want to keep on uniting and building to support them in every way that we can. And Sekou says that the crisis in Sudan is more complex. Yeah, you got the UAE. You got the UAE instigating these problems. You got French intelligence, Israeli intelligence on the ground, American intelligence on the ground. It is a very, very troubling situation. And there's a long historical context of this, from Omar al-Bashir, who many people supported, who Russia supported. Russia supported Omar al-Bashir's regime. And Russia is not necessarily the good guy in this picture at all, because Russia, in many cases, is willing to support dictators on the African continent if they're willing to side with Russia, buy Russian weapons, accept Russian development as far as like nuclear capabilities, right? So Russia's, playing their position just like nations on the African continent, right? So this is something that we have to understand, and it requires a deep geopolitical analysis and deal with the ethnic conflicts between, some of the so-called Arab populations who are predominantly Muslim in the north to the Christian populations of the south, and just the different conflicts that exist between those two groups. That's super, super important, which is why, unification beyond these different Abrahamic traditions, even if you want to follow these Abrahamic traditions, you understand that we have a deeper unity as African people and that we're on the same side, right? And we don't have to fight just because of different faith traditions, different ethnic orientations. So now we're gonna get into just the different elements of development that the Diopian model consists of. So you have hydropower or hydraulic energy dealing with the river basins and using the river basins as sources of power. So hydropower is a significant source of electricity in Africa, generating an average of 17% of the continent's electricity. In some countries, such as Ethiopia, the DRC, Malawi, Mozambique, Uganda, and Zambia, hydropower accounts for more than 80% of electricity generations. In the South of the Sahara region, hydropower provides 40% of power. So Africa has a large technical potential for hydropower, but only 11% of it is currently being used. So if you got 80% powered by hydropower, but we're only using 11% of potential hydropower, there is a huge potential for the development of Africa using hydraulic energy and hydropower, hydrotechnology. Huge. So almost 90% of the continent's hydropower potential remains untapped, which is the largest amount of unexploited capacity in the world. If all of Africa, this technically feasible hydropower potential were used, it could generate more than 12 times the amount of electricity that it does today. So again, country with the greatest hydropower is Ethiopia, DRC, Congo, Egypt, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Sudan. And as of 2023, Ethiopia had the largest hydropower capacity in Africa, with Angola and South Africa following. So now we're moving on to solar energy. We got solar energy, figures from the Global Solar Atlas for the World Bank is analyzed by Statista reveal the average potential of solar energy around the world. Africa leads with an average long-term practical yield of 4.51 kilowatt hours a day. And then you have Central and South America with 4.48, and then North America with 4.37. So these assessments, they took out areas due to physical and technical constraints, such as rugged terrain, urbanized, industrialized areas, forests, and areas too distant from human activity sensors. So they don't consider soft constraints such as regulations imposed by national or regional authorities. And you have roughly 20% of the world's population lives in 70 countries with excellent conditions for solar power, meaning long-term output exceeding that 4.5 kilowatt hours per day. Only countries in Africa average above this threshold on a world region basis. So Africa has much more solar energy potential than any other region of the world, right? And this is one of the other energies that Diop wanted us to get into to develop Africa. You didn't talk about Amun-Ra and the sun and the sun being able to power our melanin, but what about our industry, our infrastructure being a reflection of that? So much of Africa's solar potential in less developed countries remains untapped. This untapped potential represents a unique opportunity to provide affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy services to a large share of humanity where improved economic opportunities and the quality of life are the most needed. Solar energy has the ability to get it done. It's got the ability to get it done. Solar energy is super important in the resurrection of African societies. So now you got wind energy. And again, Africa has enough wind resources to power its entire electricity demand 250 times over. So if we were using wind energy for Africa, we would be able to power the continent 250 times with wind alone, right? So a study which mapped the technical wind potential of the continent found that Africa could generate 59,000 gigawatts of wind energy, equivalent to 90 times the current global installed wind capacity. So based off of wind alone, 90 times of the global wind capacity is in Africa alone, right? But it's largely untapped with less than 1% of the world's installed wind capacity. The continent faces several challenges such as lack of infrastructure, financing, and policy support to harness its wind potential, right? So some African countries have made progress in developing their wind markets, such as South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, and Senegal, which account for over 85% of the continent's wind capacity. So again, we're not using our potential for wind, and we could have 90 times the global installed wind capacity if we did things right. So South Africa leads the way with over 3,000 megawatts of installed wind capacity as of 2022. Egypt is the second largest wind market in Africa with 1,643 or over 1,643 megawatts of installed capacity. And the country plans to add another 10,000 megawatts of wind power in the Gulf of Suez, which will be one of the world's largest wind farms. Then you got Morocco with the third largest wind market in Africa with over 1,500 megawatts of installed capacity. And they want to reach a target of 52% of renewable energy in its electricity mix, with wind accounting for 20%, right? Then you got Kenya. It's the home to the largest wind farm in Africa, the Lake Turkana wind farm, which produces 310 megawatts of reliable low-cost energy. The project, valued at $650 million, is the single largest private investment in the country to date and can power.
Time out, brother Reggie.
Yes, sir.
Check your cash app. You my brother. I love you, brother. Don't send me nothing back. If you do, you're not getting nothing else from me, brother. I appreciate the work you do. I appreciate the help you do for me. And just check that. All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Get ahead, brother.
All right.
For sure. And I think I got 25. I'm trying to see who gave that to me. Yeah, we're gonna keep it going. So other African countries have installed or developing wind projects include Tanzania, Tunisia, Ethiopia, Senegal, Reunion, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Djibouti. But despite some successes, the industry remains largely undeveloped. So it needs more development. So shout out to Real for that 5. Shout out to Silent K for the 10 and Mega Ma'at for the 10. Appreciate y'all.
That's all?
Yeah, I got 25.
So family, so the information that Camdyverse is given, you could use, right? The whole world needs Africa. They're just sitting and waiting, hoping and trying to make us fail. You people, you Christians, you Hebrews, you black Christians, you black Hebrew, you black Hebrew Israelites. Look at American politics. You got nowhere to go. You have to plan for the future. You think America is going to feed you, right? No, America and the rest of the countries is looking toward Africa. But you hate Africa. What is wrong with the ideology? Huh?
Hey, Reggie, don't beat them up. What it is I realize what it is. I'm not beating them up at all. It's just that I'm tapping into the wrong crowd. Yeah. And that's what it is. Rich, Rich said to me and Rich had a nice conversation. And he said, Sir, you know what it is? He said, I forgot the name he said. He said something about the wrong crowd, but he said, oh, man, I got to get the name he called them. The people love the pseudo stuff. That's what they love. And that's where the economics goes towards the pseudo. You look at Billy Carson killing them. You look at all the other pseudo stuff, they killing them. That's what we got to probably, if we go for the money, you're going for the pseudo. Because the people don't care about the people don't care about real information because it requires them to act now. See, with the pseudo stuff, it just requires you to just keep belief and to believe in the crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? Don't beat them up. Some of the people in there, they support, and we thank all of y'all who do support. Appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. So yeah, we're dealing with the wind and everything.
Before I go, thank you, Shanetta. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Brother Rez.
Shozy. Feel good scholarship. So now we get into geothermal, right? So again, Africa is well known for its geothermal energy with the East African Rift System, EARS, extended through Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Djibouti, and Eritrea. But there are other potentials for low and medium enthalpy geothermal resources. So the African continent is composed of a crystalline Precambrian basement where granitic and gneissic greenstone belts of Archean cratons are surrounded by Proterozoic orogenic provinces. And these cratons are fragments of ancient crust in the surrounding mountainous orogenic belts or where higher heat flow signatures have been found due to convergent related subduction, resulting in the presence of partial melt-derived plutonic rock intrusions and granitoids, right? These are sources of geothermic energy that we could use to power infrastructure, right? So there's some additional areas for potential geothermal energy in West African countries, including Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania, and Algeria. And further south, the West Congolian belt in Gabon, Congo, Cabinda, and Angola has granitoids with thermal anomalies indicative of geothermal potential. Namibia and South Africa have orogenic belts with good geothermal heat flow signatures. So you have where intermittent solar and wind may be limited by clouds or low wind speeds, clean and environmentally sustainable renewable geothermal energy may be possible thanks to modern low and medium enthalpy binary ORC power generation. Good geoscience tools are available to help incrementally explore and de-risk these heat energy sources before more expensive drilling is required. And very attractive, levelized cost of energy or cost of electricity is commercially feasible for many developments to help improve electrification and reduce energy poverty across the continent. So moving forward to nuclear energy, shout out to Gregory Curtis for that 15. Really appreciate you. You have the Common Journey Initiative, which aims to support African countries in developing safe nuclear energy programs. You have a keynote by AU Commissioner Amani Abu Zaid, which emphasized nuclear energy for inclusive growth. And you had discussions which included the economic benefits, energy security, and climate objectives of nuclear energy, right? Then you have the NEA, Nuclear Energy Association delegation, visited Addis Ababa in Ethiopia Science and Technology University, meeting faculty and students. So meetings with ministers and commissioners focus on technical assistance and knowledge transfer for nuclear sector development. So in the chart on the right, you have, operational nuclear energy in Africa, scheduled construction in Egypt, developing plans in Nigeria, in Kenya, Algeria, and Morocco in the Western Sahara. Then you have in consideration, that's Zambia, Tanzania, Namibia, and Tunisia. So nuclear energy could help free Africa from the tentacles of Eurasian imperialism. Definitely. And it's something that we're looking at as far as development. So again, you got a growing number of African countries see nuclear energy as integral to their future. The Nuclear Energy Agency, NEA, is engaging with African nations for sustainable economic development through nuclear energy policy. NEA delegation attended the 37th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and the summit focused on enhancing education and skills for Africa in the 21st century. So NEA, the OECD Development Center, and the AFCON organized a roundtable on nuclear energy capacity building. So, we're moving forward with the nuclear energy. We're getting it done. We're getting it on and popping. And, that's going to conclude my presentation. So again, these are the sources that I use for this presentation. And we went over like the history of Diopian scholarship, his development, his political, parties that he created, and, some of the areas of energy that he wanted to use to be able to develop, the African society, to be able to spur a modern African Renaissance. You had hydraulic energy, you had geothermal energy, wind energy, solar energy, and each and every one of these, if Africa were to use its potential with each and every one of these, the continent would be powered. Africa you could power the continent and then some with all of these sources of energy. So it's important that we recognize the political aspects of Diopian revolution, as well as the infrastructural and energy utility aspects, because these are keys. If we look at the netters aren't gods, they're forces of nature. So if we really value the netters in ancient, Kemetic civilization, we'll be able to use these forces of nature to be able to power our civilizations, to be able to defend African culture and African societies, to be able to build state machinery, to be able to build a modern army, to be able to engage in modern scientific research, to be able to reinvigorate our languages, to be able to just, unify on many different levels, right? That's a super important thing to understand. From the two-cradle hypothesis and the differences of the modes of production within Eurasia and Africa to what we have today. It's super, super important to understand these principles. And again, I got a lot more where this came from. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Comgyverse. Hit me up on Patreon, Comgyverse on Patreon. If y'all like this presentation, hit the Cash App, $ Comgyverse. Shout out to the mods in the chat, giving it. Shout out to the Magi Archers, all my supporters, Scrappy supporters in the building. Shout out to Somnetter for giving me this platform. And that will conclude my presentation. I guess we can open up the chat, for anybody.
Like the video, thumb up the video. All right, family, y'all already know what it is. If y'all have any questions, this is the time right now. For the brothers or the sisters, whoever it was that's saying a brother is lost, I bet you scared to hit the link to ask the question.
Yeah,
prove to us that the brother is lost. Show it to us. Don't just say it. Let's see what you got. bring your sources. But we know you ain't going to hit the link because you just a troll. That's all it is. Say cool. I wish you hit the link, brother. Come on in. Say cool. Ask a question. A real thought. I know you are a studier, a researcher, a young brother who studies and do research. So I know you probably got a couple of questions for the brother. For those of y'all who was out there, let's get it in. Reggie, you could be the first one to ask the question, brother.
Right. So, so Dr. Diop talked about the federated state, and he talked about areas, groups, and territories that have these resources and energy supplies. For us in the United States, which of the territories do you think that our cities, right? Because our cities can trade with Africa, independent of the federal government. What resources or what cities do you think that we need, and what resources can you think that we can get?
You talking about cities in Africa or cities here?
Cities in the United States. I'm saying we have these big cities like Detroit, and we have Philadelphia. We have even Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
And they buy resources from they don't buy the resources that they need for their factories, right? Directly. They buy through the middleman. Cities can buy directly to states in Africa, right? So
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what region should we pinpoint our attempted access to Africa?
I would say that that's an amazing question. Any city that has access to a port is a city that you're going to want to use because that's direct trade. So you're talking about Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey, the port of Savannah, Georgia. Long Beach has a big port. I believe Chicago has a port.
Detroit.
So Detroit has a port.
New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey has a deep water port in image, and the city is majority black. Newark, right?
Yeah.
Majority black, and so in order for us, it would seem to be smart that our people in our cities would look to a place in which they can access goods directly, given inflation here is at an all-time high. And that means even our small businesses, medium businesses, and corporations, we have to buy through a middleman, right?
Yeah.
And so there could be an exchange, a people exchange, a worker exchange, an education exchange, right? As far as a monetary, right? If Detroit would have been able to deal during the automobile industry, deal directly with Africa, maybe the automobile industry would not have failed, and it led to the despair of so many blacks, Africans living in Detroit. Detroit also is connected to Canada, right? And so, our people, and this goes to to Sinetta, our people, we got to get better. We seem to be low level. The people that want to say that Camden verse is lost, they can't even pronounce the words that Camden verse says, and they speak English. They don't even know the vocabulary that he's using. He's lost, but they can't even pronounce the words, read the words, understand what Camden verse is saying, right? And they won't debate him, Sinetta, right?
No, they won't.
We want the best.
They don't want no real smoke, man. They know who to duck and who not to duck, brother. They know that.
So, Camden verse is an engineer. He's university trained, right? He could get hired by the Europeans. You can't get hired except for janitorial services or something like that.
Crazy.
You can't get hired. So the other thing is, why not raise up our brothers who's doing the work? So if everybody just gave Candy Verse $1 or $2, right? Or give Candy Verse $1, Sonetta $1, right? Or give them $2 and $2 a piece, split it. Our channel would not be suffering. We could get better scholars. So it's not just the intellectual problem. You're not trying to do anything for your children. That's the worst thing about Black people, y'all. We're not even trying to do anything for our children's future and our children's future. That's why they do to us what they do to us. We don't have the resolve, and then we're not looking to the place of people that look like us, think like us, maybe even better with some training with us. We want to be America's. It's like Kendrick Lamar. You're not our colleagues. You're a colonizer. You want to do the work for the European. I'll stop.
All right, we got Real Thought in the building. Real Thought, do you have any questions? Brother, I know you ain't disagreeing with nothing, brother. I know better than that. You're a student, man. You coming here to learn.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm over here trying to cook. You know what I mean? I literally got the pot in my hand. But hey, yo, Cam's verse, I just want to say, from one college educated brother to another, we ain't picked the same major, but damn if you ain't sharp, man. All I got to say is respect. I'm gonna have to go and look up the sources. You know what I'm saying? So I would just ask for the audience, if you got anything you could throw out there, right? Like, where you pulling your information from? Because it ain't just Amazon books, right?
No.
It ain't just this, that, and the third. You going deep. You going into the bibliography. You going into the index. You going into the notes. I can tell. Yeah. You know what I'm saying, this is when you read Cheikh Anta Diop, and you go in there and you find everything that Cheikh Anta Diop was studying. Cam's verse is cooking right now, and I just think we need to respect it. Throw some love on his name. Y'all send that cash app, man. We need more brothers like this, man. For real.
Hey, shout out to Joe Burden Sr. for that 25. Really appreciate you.
Diop was writing his from 1956, y'all, right? And his last work in UNESCO was roughly in 1985. He was writing from 56 to 85. What Cheikh Anta Diop had written is still relevant today, right? It's more relevant today than when he actually wrote it, because now Africa has developed over that time period from 56 to 86, right? They have actually stepped into the global scene, right? They are now controlling their resources. That's what his presentation was about. Being able to control their presentation, their resources, and sell it to whoever they want to sell it to, right, in their best interest, right? But we want to think about God of the Bible. We want to think about the sky falling in chariots. We really think that God is going to come on chariots. Let me take my glasses off. We really believe that. We actually believe to kingdom come, right? That would be.
You know Saracen? Who's Saracen? You got to turn on your camera, Sarah. Let me see who you are. Turn on your camera so I can see who you are. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's my brother. He good. Yeah. All right. Yes,
so
go ahead.
We want to believe. So all we want to do is believe. And people say, well, the white man's science or the white man's education. Well, guess what? One way or another, science and education is trickling down to yourself, but you're not ready. But you know who's ready? The South Americans are ready because they're here. They're going to have our tech jobs, our industrial jobs. They're going to have our corporate jobs. They're going to be in the military. They're going to be on the front line. And why? You can't even press the button, right, to vote. You can't do that. You can't organize. I'm glad that you're here with us tonight. That's the best thing that you're doing, right? And Sonetta, you do need a pseudo channel. I'm not going to be mad at you I'll even stop by on your pseudo channel, right?
Yeah,
But
I got the pseudo channel. That's a fact.
yeah, because the problem is that our community here, you really, most of you want to really go to the pseudo channel. You want Sonetta to have a pseudo channel because you know why? Because you are failing your people. That's not all of you, right? But think about it. Do your children, need these this education, this resources? Think about it. Not you, right? Not you, not you, your children. And that's the difference between other groups of people. They care about their children. You just want to make sure that your children have milk and cereal and diapers, right? Send them to any old school, don't help them with their homework, and then get mad at them when they need more, right? And they go out there and make mistakes because you're not with them. You're partying, you're popping bottles. That's not all of us. That's why Sonetta is on these streets, right? Trying to let you know what people think, so hopefully you can change your mind. But it's not really, it's really not working. And then the worst thing is about it is you're against us. One thing is you have no action, and two, you're against us.
Not everybody, Red. You got to make that clear.
Not everybody. I'm not, Sonetta, I'm talking about the people who can't contribute $2 for you and $2 for Canvas. How do you think Sonetta, these other channels, they're paying all of these experts, so-called experts, right? They're paying them to come on to colonize us. Those experts that are coming on, they're making huge mistakes. But guess who can check them? Camdyverse can check them. Brother Reggie can check them. We even got Dr. Issa that can check them, right? We want Real Thoughts can check them, right? But they put those experts up there, and now they created this whole new model, right? You don't have to believe in God, just believe in the white experts. So the white experts are most of them are not bringing textual sources. They're not showing. They're just saying it. And they want, and that's what Jabari exposed. Jabari exposed when he debated at PhD. To Jabari's credit, he said, I know what you're going to do. You're going to talk, but you're not going to show any sources.
All right. Hold on, Reggie. Let me bring in the brother. Sarah Sin. Let me bring in Sarah Sin. Shout out to you, my brother, Special K, Bond Dog. Thank y'all for the love and the support. Just want you to know I saw that. Yesterday, Silent K. I think it was yesterday I saw that. Shout out to you, brother. Come on, Sarah.
What's good? What's good? What's the deal, Kemji? I just wanted to ask you like two things.
For sure.
The first one was basically how you spoke on the Yamna tribe and basically them having an affinity to like being like warlike type people and not having a word for mama or woman.
Yeah.
And also when you were talking about how we use black and that the way we defined it was, through like divine natural fact or, things of that nature. How do you think that plays out in the pantheon, like their God pantheon, when it comes to like the difference between those two and how, how it will play out? Because what I'm asking is like basically how the Indo-Europeans pantheon, how would that have an effect on their pantheon? Basically, them not having that word and them basically having horses and things of that nature versus having like the bull like we had and things of that nature to, you feel me, look at another way of divine aspects. How do you think? Yeah, how do you think those things play out differently?
Yeah, that's a very great question. Most scholars, when they're analyzing Indo-European culture, they look at Hinduism because Hinduism has a lot of the different elements that Christianity removed from, European society. So another thing that people don't realize is that they didn't bury women in, Indo-European and Proto-Indo-European culture. they actually burned them. They cremated them. They buried men. So they buried men, but they didn't bury women. So there's traditions within Hinduism where you see, women being burned for, transgressing against their husband, or, if a woman is a widow, she could be burned, and just some of the different mistreatment that you see within Hinduism is kind of a outgrowth of that, Proto-Indo-European society, but then also the Abrahamic faiths, being in that zone of confluence for the Semitic people, in the zone of confluence in between Indo-European and African, where they retained some African elements, but then a lot of other elements were more so, Eurasian, and the mistreatment of women within those cultures, and just the fact that women don't have a value. The Trinity doesn't include women within that pantheon of the triune Godhead. So there's a lot of different things with that. Where with respect to African, with the Orishas, you have women, feminine Orishas. The Abusums in Ghana, it's the same way. Women being empowered within these different traditions. And also within the Netters, like you have within the Ogdoad, you have masculine and feminine. The Ennead, you have masculine and feminine. The depictions, they always have a man and a woman together. Even the suits of the pharaohs, they always give credit to their wife, their mother. So this is something that you don't necessarily see within the Indo-European culture that you definitely see within the African culture. So I would say that the theology of Africa is more holistic, and it invites women into the fold, of the sacred masculine and feminine. Whereas within Indo-European culture, because of the scarcity of resources, because of some of the environmental conditions, that's what led them to be more so warlike from a survival standpoint, and that's what led them to degrade women over time.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And so as far as us using the bull and them having a horse, what do you think about that difference?
Well, the bull, like Reggie would probably be a little bit better to answer this, but the bull is more so because of the sustenance that it provided, as far as like from the cow being able to provide milk, and then the meat, that the bull had. And then also being able to carry our agricultural loads, that's kind of the reason, like in the two-cradle model, you have agricultural settlements as far as like the bull being prominent. Whereas for the Eurasians, the horse is like a war tool, was more prominent, especially in the Eurasian steppes. But at the same token, you did have like Equus ferus formicabilis, which is the domestic horse in Africa. The most primigenous form of Taurus was also in Africa as well. So we did have horses, but it may not have been deified to the same level that bulls were. So I would say that like our usage of the bull is more so related to the agricultural settlement piece and the importance of them as a load-bearing animal, whereas for the Eurasians, the horse as a warfare tool was more prominent in that case.
So on that, do you think that played that intermingling of them bringing the horses into Africa, like the full-on horse into Africa, do you think that played into like the detriment of what was going on in Egypt, or their spirituality, or whatever, somewhat in that?
I wouldn't necessarily, because you have different iterations, like you have different intermediate periods. It was much more complex, like the desiccation of the Sahara.
Not to cut you off, not the whole thing, and I'm not even asking you to be like super on point correct, you know what I mean, but just do you think that was an aspect of it, not just it, being the entirety of what was going on and what played into the intermingling?
I mean, that would be difficult to discern, like the level that because I think in most cases when Africans had Asian domesticates, they incorporated it into an indigenous mode of production. So it wasn't necessarily like that element led to a disintegration of the society as much as it is like they used that Eurasian technology or that Eurasian element to build their African society, right? So I would say that for the most part, even if you look at Ouagadougou with the Cissé dynasty with Dinga Cissé and Djabi Cissé, the son of Hilojon Tunkadunka, who was the son of Yugu Dungusi. The horse, the domestic African horse, was a prominent element of their civilization. And Musa Lam defines them as neo-pharaonic. So the fact that they have the horse and they say that their horse traditions goes back to classical Africa would link the two civilizations and not necessarily be aligned with like the idea of disintegration because if it's an Asian import, if that makes sense.
That was it. I was gonna say, yeah, I sent you an email, bro. Were you able to catch that?
Let me see. I'm gonna look right now.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, y'all. This is y'all chance to come on in, man. Ask the brother a question, y'all. This is your time.
I love to ask a question after KMG checks that email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. It's a long email. It's an email about Pop Affiliator.
So yeah, no, I don't need no reply right now. I'm just trying to see if you was able to catch that. You can just reply to me later or whenever. You know what I'm saying? I just want to see if you got it.
I got you. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. It's all good. Peace out, bro. Peace out, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Come on, man. Real thought. Let's get it.
So real quick, Kamji.
Yeah.
Because I was surprised to hear the brother come in, you know what I mean, and ask questions about, I think he asked about Hinduism and Buddhism, correct?
Which one?
The guy who just left. I'm kind of cooking right now. I'm trying to like multitask.
All good.
I was very
don't burn your dinner, brother. Cook your food, man.
I'm right here with it, big dog. But look, so I'm surprised. I was just surprised to hear him bring up Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. Because I remember being in the college class. Like I took an Old Testament class. I took a Hinduism, a Buddhism, a philosophy. I took everything, right? So I'm just curious, where do you stand on spirituality itself? Are you pulling from a specific religion? Do you have a spirituality that comes from the ancient East? Is it from the ancient Africa? I'm just curious at this point.
Well, that's a very fascinating question because I used to be one of those who saw the incorporation of Africans when you start to do the Kemetic yoga and talk about the chakras, right? I used to be one of those people like, hey, that's Indo-European, like that's not us. But I've kind of like even dealing with the whole tarot card thing and all that type of stuff. I kind of see it as like African people are going to incorporate certain things. Same thing we do with like we're using English and the way we use Ebonics. Same thing we use capitalism. Even though it's not authentically African, right? It still can be used in a way that's beneficial. Like stretching and yoga, that's beneficial. Meditation, that's beneficial, right? So for me personally, like Sonetta asked me in the beginning, and I would say like as far as religion, if I was to claim a religion, it'd be Black Power, Black love, Black pride, all of the above, right? Even though I have members of my family, immediate family, Christian, members of my family who are Muslim, right? Who have converted back and forth, and their fam, like I don't see them any different, just because they may be following Abrahamic traditions. And I've learned from it from a cultural perspective, like these different traditions, on both sides. I've learned from it. They've inspired me in certain ways. But as far as like my personal relationship with the divine and the ancestors, I like to say that for me, if I'm not building up African people, if I'm not promoting like Black empowerment, I'm in the wrong and I'm not following the mission that I was called for. And I judge myself based upon the parameters of whether or not African people, Black people are advancing or regressing. So that would be the way that I would see it.
Man, I feel that 100,000% because I remember my days of like being all for religion or spirituality, whatever. And then I remember my days where I was against it. And then I remember my days where like I was kind of finding that balance in between.
Yeah.
Because like you just said, like a lot of our African people, they're not going to let go of their traditions.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's good that we try to get them to let go of their traditions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, they won't. Like I always say this, and shout out to Carol Barr for the 5. Shout out to I see Kaiser Soze Stockton in the building, West Coast in the building. So like in order to, if you really wanted to eliminate religion, you'd have to exterminate humans, because there's something about human beings that's like naturally religious that leads us to religious type of thinking. So I say that, like, I try to put it like this: like, Kemet is a black nation. You could be a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, an Ifa initiate, and you could promote Kemet, the black nation, right? But that shouldn't be interfering with what you say, with whatever you choose as a faith tradition, because these African traditions, they're more so philosophical as opposed to religious. I know Muslims who are Pan-African nationalists. I know Christians that wear ankhs. I know atheists with African print and African clothes. So I know all the full spectrum. So for me, it would be much more useful if we use these like African principles to unite. Then whatever you want to do, if you want to have a faith tradition, if you want to be an atheist, if you want whatever, like, that's private. But in terms of like the family stuff, we should be united on that ground and never ever let that go.
I feel that a lot. I really do. And I think a lot of us forget when we're talking about spirituality is that it's a personal experience. So we don't have to make it a debate. We don't have to make that part of who we are a fight. We don't have to make that part of who we are in conflict with our African people back home on the continent, because we find spirituality in the everyday life. Like, it's way deeper than saying like some, oh, I believe I have chakras. Like, bro, the ancient Kemetic people believed they had certain centers of energy. They called them Sekem Shinre. If I'm wrong, you tell me in the chat. But I'm just saying, like, we all have our understandings of all these different things. And I think it's more powerful to find where they intersect than to constantly conflict, because we are not going to erase one side or the other. You might as well figure out how to find a middle ground, brother. I salute you for being as academic as you are, but also approaching it from a standpoint that could bring us to a point of unity. Like if for example, right, if you were to become a leader in any right, in any way, in any fashion, you could not overlook the people that you are leading, and you cannot overlook their spiritual beliefs. So I just don't understand how people will talk like they at war with spirituality. It's too late for that. You better embrace it, or you better figure out how to communicate with the people who have it, because you're not going to erase it.
Yeah, facts. And shout out to Dr. Salim Fariji, one of my elders, where he spoke about having like multiple religious competence. So like in whatever community that you're in, but you could be able to vibe and build with whatever it is, and that's important for us. If we actually are about unity and building this common bond, we should take that to heart.
Yeah, that's love right there. That's love. Peace.
Somebody else in the chat, his brother came in.
Neil Spite, what up, man?
Hey, what's up, fam? Camji, check this out. So I'm 54 years old. I've been studying about maybe 30 years now.
For sure.
And in my studies, there's a word that pop up. I even done studies on the very first play, 1901, that an all-black cast done. It was called In Dahomey, like the Kingdom of Dahomey.
Yeah.
And it's just a trip. All blacks, New York blacks, LA blacks, South Southern. We all say, hey, I'm fixing to go over here and kick it with Dahomey. You know, that's what, I'm like, and that's where voodoo comes from. I mean, it's like, is there something we missed? Did we bring that off? And then I see in Suriname, they got a whole village in South America called Dahomey.
Yeah.
It's wild. Dahomey might unify us for real.
Yeah, Haiti was predominantly like a Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines, like they were derived from that civilization as well.
Yeah, that's what I heard. A lot of Haitians are Fong Bay people or derivative from Dahomey.
Yep.
Man, that's a wild thing. But yeah, hey man, I loved your presentation. I would I wish you could have him and Ngozi. Man, that's gonna be the one.
Ngozi's running.
All right. We need that, man.
Hey, I mean, the floor is open. The floor is open.
I know you with it. I know.
The only problem I have with Ngozi with Ngozi is that he never shows sources. He just
that's real.
that's the only thing. Other than that, you know, and it sounds real good, but you got to be able to show sources though.
So we can do our research. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I put out that genetic presentation that basically destroyed everything that them detractors been saying. None of them responded. None of them. We did the presentation on your show, Sonetter, with I think it was Reggie was there, and they all had a chance to respond. Not one word. Not
Was that
one word.
you had the astrophysicist up there? I seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fire. They ain't
Hey,
had no
Thomas, let me see who you are. Turn on your camera, Thomas. You got to cut the camera on. You want to make sure you ain't no flasher, bro.
There's some crazies out there.
All right, there you go, Thomas in the building. What up, Thomas?
Hey, peace be upon everybody on the panel. How we doing?
Peace, brother.
All right.
It's good.
I just want to pretty much reiterate about this unity. I think it's very important. If it's kind of like as I look at it. I mean, I'm Muslim. I grew up in a Muslim community and everything, and I see how they impact their community. And you see Asians, you see Hispanics, you see people from different walks of life, and they all carry a Muslim name, but however, they also carry their culture. And I feel like to be African, to carry that banner, it doesn't diminish what a person has become. So if you grew up in America, if you want people to carry that African banner, you really can't demonize the culture that they grew up in if you truly want to unite everyone. If everyone truly came from the planet, from that continent, if that makes sense, what I'm saying. I feel like I know we debate and we clown each other on here a lot, but I just feel like we missed the whole point. If unity is the goal, then that's something that we all can reach and get on a common ground about, whether we Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, so forth and so on. So I just wanted to say that that's really important about this whole panel.
Well,
I just think Sanetta does great work.
I love what you said. I love that right there, brother. I love your statement. But the sad truth of the matter is, brother, is that there will never be a total unity amongst our people, strictly because of their belief, strictly because of their religion. That's not being negative. That's just being truthful and honest. Because of their certain beliefs, it's not going to allow them to be a part of certain things,
Yeah,
and that's true, and understandably, that's the point I'm trying to say is, yes, it's going to be differences, and I feel like everyone can't get on the ship though. You can only focus on who you can get. Like I think so. My point is for y'all to get the youth, because that's the key for Kemet, the whole idea of Afrocentricity to reach the youth. It has to come down to a point where it's understandable on a basic level.
Hey, brother Lie, prove me wrong, brother Lie. I see you in there saying, shaking my head, hit the link, come on in. You're a Muslim.
Yeah, for sure. We can always debate that. That's no problem. But I'm saying for the youth, we spend so much time on trying to convince adults that we don't really like this panel and other panels that are African centered don't really do nothing for the youth. And if they are, I feel like they need to do more. And I think that's the key instead of reaching, older people that.
I agree, brother.
That's where we lacking at as far as reaching people. If we want to build and grow, we don't really have nothing for the youth.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't really got nothing for the youth. So it's like just older. It's no attack. It's just older people that carry that banner more than younger people.
I love what you're saying. That's real talk right there.
Yeah, I've been trying to produce some more content, for the youth. I have a few videos on my channel, but just to make it on their level, 3 to 5, or even not even 3, 0 to 5, because the babies really need this truth. As soon as they're born, as soon as they come into the earth, they need to know that that black is beautiful, that black is powerful, that black is love. They need to know these principles because they see all these things in the media and these shows with, they don't even have black people. And if they do, they're depicted negatively. But we have to combat that propaganda day one.
Hey, Camdiverse.
Yo, what's good?
All right, check this out. So in your studies, have
Yeah.
you noticed if we go with the Abrahamic faith and we deal with the three sons of Noah, that they put the black son as the total opposite of what science says he is? They say it's Shem, the middle son, Japheth, the Europeans or them, as the elder, and Ham, the younger. How is that? And then when we dig up all the bones is in the younger nation of Africa, as older than anything on the planet.
Well, I would say that I mean certain traditions have Ham as the second son, but
Even
when
that, even
yeah, when I deal with it, the Bible is not meant to be historical. It's not meant to be scientific at all.
Yeah,
It's meant
true.
to be these texts are about like theology, eschatology, the eternal destiny of people according to their traditions. So we shouldn't necessarily try to make it that. But at the same token, like, you know, in the Bible, you have people who are Afrocentric, who are also Christians or who also follow like Judaism or Hebrew traditions. So like they are able to clean it up a little bit to a degree.
Right.
But,
all right. That's it. And that's enough.
but like if you take it literally, like it's not,
Yeah.
it's meant to be supernatural. It's not meant to deal with the natural history or natural sciences at all.
Okay.
So you're gonna get in a lot of trouble if you take it literally.
Literally. Okay. I got that.
Yeah, it was another trucker who came on. I don't know if he left.
And another thing too, though, so you need a website. You don't got a website yet?
Peace to my Jai Commander in the chat.
What? Say what?
I said, you need to get your website. You need a website. You need to like kind of bridge over from this YouTube to your own website. That way you got on time and everything and control your content.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to do though, because I tried that a long time ago. Yeah, that's kind of hard to do. That takes a lot of money. Yeah, that takes a lot of money. So, you know, our people ain't even trying to give $1 up. So that takes, man. Why you think everybody don't got their own web band? Everybody would have had, you could do away with YouTube and you have your own web band and all that. No, that takes a lot of money. I looked into that years ago. Because if it was that easy, we all be having our own website. See, a website and then throwing up videos on your website, you're still going to have to go through YouTube for the web band. You see? And so even if you make a mistake and put up something, they can take the video down, they can do all of that. They still do that. I tried that a few times.
Yep, and then even if you make the website and you got all the bandwidth and all of that,
right,
to handle it right, you still gotta find a way to funnel everybody from YouTube, Instagram, etc. to your own site.
Yeah.
No, the only reason why I said that is because I feel like if it's a place, it's like no place to learn. Like I said, obviously our concepts crash. I got obviously a different belief system and things from the panel. However, when it comes to unity and things like that, that's no problem. I feel like I said, when it comes to feeding the community and building the community, I think that those things we can agree on and we can get past. But I feel like if you had like a website or just a place for people to go where they can learn, where they can understand, because like videos is just our way to learn.
Yeah, you're talking about a website. Okay, yes. Brian Russell, yes, a website is easy to make. That's not hard. I thought he was talking about your own you know, like your own channel, like a YouTube channel. That's what I thought he was talking.
I'm trying. I got you, Si. Like I know you tough. Like you from the streets. So like what I'm trying to push you into is just like your own evolution. Like not saying that you can't grow without me, like nothing like that. I'm saying like for you to grow and expand, you need different methods to add on to just the one video. So I feel like if you had Brother Reggie do classes and they all videoed and they on your website where people can learn and take steps and then quiz at the end of it, like things like that, where people can go on their own time.
Check this out, brother.
As opposed to
I had a website. It was called the HOK, the House of Consciousness website. People know about that. And when the minute all this stuff went down and took place, the brother that created the website for me, he still had the password. You know what I'm saying? And so what he did was he just destroyed it. And that happened a few times. Like when people get mad and shit, and you know, jealousy kicks in, they'll take down the website, and that's what they did. But I ain't, you know, that's what you do it. So I tried to take it and change the passcode, because if I buy it, if I pay somebody to make a website for me, then you got to go ahead and make it and give me everything, turn it all over.
Right.
Yeah, you need to make them boys sign a contract.
What about the University of Sonetta? What did you have, Sonetta? Remember University of something?
Yeah, because he just did it for me.
Okay.
You know, he just wanted to control it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he can give you the password. Yeah,
I ain't with all of that. You know, so that's what happened. Yeah. All right. Anybody else, man? Anybody else? Thomas, what's up, man? You spoke. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's you. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's me. That's me. I was saying, Brother Lai.
Brother Lai be scared to come on with all the men here. You know, Brother Lai be scared. He like,
I ain't scared. He be really
holding back on y'all. Brother Lai be scared. Brother Lai be scared. He like to go.
Y'all gotta put respect on his name now.
Yeah, that's he like to go and dominate the females over there.
I'm just on his Don King, bro.
He ain't coming over here with the brothers, man. He don't come over here. He like to just dominate and be the ruler. You know? Shout out to Brother Lai.
Tell Michael Kelly to come on.
Gotta check your email, man.
See, I knew that to get him on. I knew that to get him on.
Well, yeah, I see him too.
Well, y'all.
There you go.
Oh, he ran off. He ran off after that.
That boy said his name 3 times.
Yeah.
Hey, Brother Cam Verse.
Yeah, what's good?
Have you heard of the sister Drusilla Dungy Houston?
Oh, of course, I have her book.
Awesome.
Yeah. She's one of the GOAT researchers. Amazing.
Man, I wish we can get an after school special on her, like somebody do a mini series at her time writing about the Kushite kingdoms. What 18? What or 19? Oh man, 17. Who was talking like that?
That would be an interesting source for real.
That's real.
Oh yeah.
I love stuff like that. When they start diving into pre-colonial, post-colonial, and slicing and dicing, boy.
Yeah. Even David Walker was talking about Egypt back then.
Hold on. Miss White said, Brian, I agree. I'm a Christian and I love to come on Sonetta. He can piss me off. Yeah. You know what? There's another sister who is straight up a Christian, but I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of them who have turned over a whole new leaf and see the Bible in a whole different way. You know? So yeah, you give me some time, you'll see the Bible in a whole different way as well. Brother Lai, what it is with you, man?
Peace and blessings to all y'all brothers on the panel.
Peace,
Salaam alaikum, Brother Lai. Rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When can I get my interview with you, brother?
It's not going to be tomorrow, Saturday. You forget I work Monday through Friday, man. I don't get off of work until sometime.
If you don't mind me asking, brother, what do you do? What do you do? Your career?
Stonemason.
Oh, what?
Stonemason.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow, that's what's up. That's what it is, man.
Oh, that's a beautiful. Hey, Brother Lai.
You making a lot of money, Brother Lai.
Nah, I'm making a little bit of money.
Nah, man, you're a stonemason. You making money, bro. Yeah.
What did you want to ask me, brother?
Brother Lai, I was going to ask you.
What's up, throwing it down every day?
Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you about diorite and different stones that Kemetic statues are made out of. They couldn't have possibly done that with what they call bronze tools.
No, they couldn't have. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I know a lot of people ask me that. You can't.
Okay. That's a hard stone. They don't even teach you that in starting off clay and sculpt.
Yeah, let me ask you, brother. How do you think? What is your opinion on how was they able to build the pyramids with them stones?
Yes.
How were they able to move them and do that type of work, man?
My opinion,
Yes.
vibrations and sound.
Yep, I heard that.
You said vibrations and sound.
Yes.
Talk to me about that, man. Talk to me about that.
It's a deeper conversation that we can have.
Vibrations.
It's a deeper conversation we can have. It's
Yeah.
not going to be on the last.
That's why I need an interview, brother. So you vibration and sound can move a stone, brother, weighing tons, weighing in with some tons.
Ooh, some high frequencies.
You see, the truth is, them stones didn't weigh tons when they put them in place.
Hold on. You gotta come better than that, brother La. But then again, we was just talking about creating a pseudo channel, man.
By the power of grace.
So, brother La, that's where you come from, bro. Let's talk about it, man. Come on, bro. There you go. You can start off the pseudo channel, brother.
Nothing pseudo. You asked me my opinion, and I'm just.
Nah, I'm only joking. You know I like messing with you, brother La. You're a good brother, man. You're a good brother, and I recognize that. That's why I mess with you. Yeah.
Hey, brother. So, brother La, would you say that also? I think it's on an island, the temple of the island of Philae, where the temple of Aset is, where they have on the wall a certain chemistry of how to break the stone down into like a liquid form and then form it,
or channel it to another direction.
Now, you know what Shaka asked, because I think I asked Shaka. No, somebody asked Shaka a similar question. And Shaka said, don't you understand that the Nile River is right there, you fool, the Nile River.
And it's not breaking it, just channeling it into another direction. That's all.
Yeah, Shaka was saying they bring it over through the Nile River. But hold on here. Do they bring over the material or do they bring over a stone? Because the stone is not coming over the Nile River, brother. That joint is sinking.
Yeah, come on.
Sinking. Come on, bro. So, what are you talking about?
From what I heard, they had an ingredient, they had a recipe for limestone. They took it apart and they put it back together where it was needed, because there's no way for you to get that limestone up to the top when it's time to make the capstone for the itself. The capstone wasn't just limestone; they had some gold encapsulated in it.
It was electrum.
Bringing that up there.
Now, you know, there's stories out there too that say aliens have done that. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
That's
absolutely
BS.
not. That's bullshit.
I would say aliens foreign to the thought of a mere man. So some mere men, those are our super like high intelligent beings of our people. People on higher conscious level.
It's just
some appetite. We're no aliens building our shit. That's our people, brother.
Exactly.
Some people say it's the Anunnaki. Some people say it's the Watchers. Some people say it's our people from planet Nubia. It's a lot of different theories.
You mean planet Nibiru?
Nibiru, yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all a question. Who in the world would have had the ability to put something together over time, right? Where we can go back in history and see the step pyramids from our own people before we perfected the structure and it was falling apart and it looked like a mountain of dung. Our people knew what it was like to build a structure out of dung, build a structure out of something else, and then you build a structure out of stone, and it got this shape and that shape. It took a long time before you get to the great pyramids of Giza.
Yeah, that's all kind of experimental pyramids. Yeah.
But we can go back in time and look at the development of our people getting to the point of the Great Pyramids. There's no reason to reach for aliens unless you one of them white boys with the crazy hair on TV.
Oh, alien. What is it called? Ancient aliens.
Yeah, the ancient aliens boys. That's our shit. Y'all got to stop giving that to them boys, man.
That's real. Hey, wait a minute. So, according to Asteroid Quasi, he says in the museum they got the black capstone, and that it was all white on all four sides with a black capstone, like the normal iris or iris of a human, with a white ball and then the black in the middle was the top.
What museum is this?
I've seen it too. I don't know if it was Cairo or British, but he shows it. It's in case. It's a big black top where the black would be on top of the white line, like an eyeball.
And it's
But
showing,
not in a circle.
showing the iris?
Yeah, well, no, it was black capstone on top of the white limestone. So it's a black cap.
All right, hold on. Let me bring in an Israelite brother. Israelite. This brother got some answers for us. He got some answers. Brother Israel, what's up, man?
Peace, how you doing? I know you seen me in the back chat. I didn't like the
No, I can't let you in till the brother finish his presentation.
I understand that. I respect it. I didn't like the way you put that on Israelites. Those are Hebrew Israelites.
What are you
Y'all
talking
got the difference between the Israelite and the Hebrew Israelite, because you said Israelites was running around hating on Africans.
Right.
Them Hebrew Israelites, those one West Hebrew Israelites from Harlem, you know that they're Hebrew Israelites.
Yes, I agree.
That's the only thing I'm not really causing.
So how are you with the Africans, brother? You love African people?
You know, I'm finna get an African wife. You know, I've always been down with the Africans ever since gorillas.
Okay, beautiful, brother. That's what's up.
It's African liberation theology. Most
You
people
getting ready to get an African wife, Israel?
Good job.
Oh man, all praise to the Most High, brother.
Man.
Yeah.
All praise to the Most High. You know the Hebrews gonna get you, man.
And I don't worry about Hebrews. Never have, never will.
Okay. Gonna have some African children. That's what I'm talking about, Israel.
I hate Africa.
All right, there you go. That's what it is.
It's a beautiful thing, brother. Beautiful thing.
Anything else you want to say, bro?
No, I'm not.
How do you think they was able to build them pyramids and stack them stones up on top of each other?
Somebody put some work in and somebody had a nice mind to do it. That's all I know.
Oh.
Hey, you know, of noteworthy, the Japanese tried to do it with all their technology, and it inwardly it collapsed.
Uh-oh. Chris Harris scratching his head. We got to find out why Chris Harris scratching his head, man.
Pop up, big dog. What's up?
I appreciate you inviting me out here, y'all. Y'all stay blessed.
Peace, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Can y'all hear me?
Brother Reggie?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go back to the construction of the pyramid. So I can give you a source, right? Okay, so Professor Davidovich, right? Davidovich from the Geopolymer Institute has shown that many of the stones used in the constructions was man-made, right? Second of all, they wrote down the method that they was using, right?
Yes.
Third, they used acids and bases to soften the stone.
Yep.
So you people, not all of you, right? You people want to go to aliens, right? But you don't want to look at the evidence on the ground. If there were these machines, where are these machines, right? But then the ancient people, they actually tell you and show you, right, basically how this stuff is done. So now modern science is looking at the materials, putting it through analysis to find out the construction of the bricks. And there's whole treaties on stone softening techniques. So it's like when you do work today, like, I don't know, stone masonry work, there are chemicals used. These chemicals, right, or bases, they're their acids and their bases, depending on the mixture, to soften the stone. So to say that our people didn't do that, right, is real problematic to me. It's real problematic. Yes.
Reggie, I got a question. You know, knowing this is, because I didn't want to disrupt the bill, but knowing that this is actually my field of expertise, I would like to come back and give like a full history of the development of structural engineering in Africa.
You got it. Sarnetta, green lighted, right? You there, Sarnetta?
I'm here, bro. I'm here.
Yeah. So can you green light Camdy Verse, who is a structural engineer, to come back and to debunk some of this, some of these theories about other people than African people actually constructing, designing these temples, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, another thing is we got the MVP Chris Harris in the building today. Is there anything that Chris Harris may disagree with our brother Camedy Verse?
On what?
Oh no! I don't disagree with him on anything that he's said today. Not too much of it. No, not at all.
All right. That's good.
Yeah, but I do want to add this though. We got a book here with men splitting oceans with magical wands, talking snakes, talking donkeys, talking burning bushes, men floating up into heaven. And you mean to tell me that you don't want to believe that Africans built their own superstructures? That don't make no sense right there. And I got to question your rationale right there. Israel doctrine.
Oh, that's what Israel. I didn't. Okay, I was going to ask the elephant in the room. Who said Africans didn't create the pyramid?
Right. Go ahead, Israel.
I just made a statement a few minutes ago.
Nobody.
African liberation theology. Oh, African mindset, because people try to, as I heard the brother speaking, you got Christians, you got Islam, you got that believe different things, but when you fall up under one title, African liberation, because James Cone made it black liberation theology. I don't like black none. I deal with African and Israelites and nationality and stuff. I'm a nationalist. So what's the mindset on that in the room?
The mindset on that is simply you can't deal with Africans and be an Israelite at the same time, because God hates Africans. The God of the Bible hates Africans.
Your mother told you that, because my mother never told me.
No, I read it in your book. I read it in your book.
Well,
keep reading.
It's in there. I've read the entire book, studied that Gemara, studied Mishnah, studied Talmud. It's all in there. It's all part of the Israel doctrine. It's all part of the rabbinical doctrine. It's in there.
Start up a debate. You want to call me out on something? You got a problem? You want to call me out on something?
Yeah. The Bible is anti-African. The entire Israelite doctrine is anti-African. Pro-African stuff here.
You're not calling me out on any subject matter.
I mean, we're here right now. We can have that discussion right now. Is the Bible pro-African?
Yes.
I'll give you first. Is it? Please explain.
Yes.
Can you explain?
Egypt is Israel's mother. You're Egyptology, but you won't say that's Israel's mother. You try to make them a motherless and a fatherless child. Let you tell it.
Egypt has nothing to do with Israelites.
Well, you calling me out. Set it up. Time and date.
I mean, we can have the conversation right now. That's the point.
We can have it right now.
Let's have that conversation right now. When we open up the Bible, the first thing you do, you begin with here. When you open up the story of Noah, Ham is cursed. Canaan is cursed.
Why
Everybody of Africa is cursed.
Slow down. Why did Ham get cursed? Because he slept with his.
It was Cain. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that.
Okay, I'm gonna do a show.
It says a slave or slaves he'll be.
Listen, I already did.
Say a servant, the servant he will be.
Why you keep talking over me, man? Do you know how to give respect and earn respect? Or you just a coward that?
Brother, I thought we was having a conversation. I think what's going on is there's a delay.
And I don't want you talking over me. Can we do it where you speak and then I speak and we go back and forth like men with intelligence? Or you ain't got no intelligence?
There's a delay. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's a delay.
The delay. That's what it is. Go ahead, Israel.
Okay. Well, like I said, it can be formal, informal. You can have it now. I'm not for sitting down having an argument without it being structured properly. I'm not a coward. I don't run from debates. But if you want to run from it, calling me out or whatever, go ahead, do what you do.
Israel.
Peace. Who there?
Peace.
I don't see who's talking.
This Neil.
Cool. How you
Okay.
doing?
Me and you friends on Facebook. You hit me up all the time. Let me say a question to you about earlier. You just said that Israel is the daughter of Egypt. Is that right?
Came right up out of Egypt womb.
Okay. And my question to that is, with that being in your understanding, how do you explain Ham being the younger son when we read the Bible? And Ham is the father of Egypt, and Shem is the father of Israel, and Shem being an older brother of Ham. When all of the I'm gonna finish the question right here. With all of the bones on earth ever being found as the oldest humans on earth would be the so-called Hamites, and not Shem as the elder.
This is why I said Egypt is the mother of Israel, because the Bible said Egypt held Israel in captivity for 400 years. When they came out of there with Hamites and other nations, that's when they became the nation of Israel. If they hadn't went through that, Egypt wouldn't be their mother. But anybody that know the Bible know that it says they was down there for 400. I don't care if it's a lie or not. The Bible says you believe it or don't believe it. But you got to fight with the Bible, not me. And so having this foreknowledge that they was down there for 400 years in captivity, as it say, Moses got his knowledge from there. Christ went down there, all of that. You can't say that Egypt is not the mother of Israel. If you say that, then you ignorant of the Bible. You just hate the Bible.
Okay, so I can agree with that to this point. Just for sake of argument, let me ask you this then, Israel. If you saying that, and you saying the Bible is stating that and showing you that through its conversation, it also says that Ham, the father of all the Africans, is the little brother of Shem.
Yeah.
But now stop right there. So then if we do the research, you can't find no bones, no nothing in Israel.
I don't care about bones. I ain't reading about bones in the Bible. You read about bones in the Bible?
Yeah, because the bone of Shem would be old. Everything in Israel found in the grave should be way older than anything in Ethiopia.
What scripture is that?
It's Genesis 10, I believe 6, where it talks about the when they got off the boat. Huh?
It's talking about bones.
Yes.
I know
yes, they do talk about bones in the Bible. They do. They say that the Israelites carried Joseph's bones out of Egypt.
Did I speak, sir?
Yes.
I think we was talking to each other and you jumped in there. You're a very rude guy, but it's all good. I'm gonna look over your ignorance. So
how long we done known each other, man? Are you serious?
I'm still talking, dude. What the hell are you talking for? You ain't got respect for the mic. What's the matter with you? MVP.
Okay, I can't talk to this retarded nigga, man. I'm out, man. This nigga's retarded.
All right, y'all. He's gone. He's gone again. Don't bring it back down, Israel. He's gone.
I know about Shem, Ham, and Japheth. In chapter 10, it's talking about them and all their children.
You on the ropes right now, Israel. Deal with this.
I just told him. Yes. Ham was cursed, but why was Ham cursed? Anybody in the room know why Ham was cursed? I'll tell you. He slept with his mother. He slept with his father's nakedness, and his father's nakedness is his mother. That's what the Bible say. But don't
he slept with his father's nakedness,
which is his mother.
Okay.
Israel is right about that.
And so, since he slept with his father's nakedness, his father said that child that comes out because you slept with your mother. Hey, at the end of the day, I'm cursing the child. Don't nobody really know that, because people say they know Bible, but they don't know Bible lingo. So what's the question? Where we going?
So here's the question. So Brother Reggie, let me first ask, Brother Reggie, do you see that being an answer to that question I asked?
Not directly, but he's talking from the Bible, right?
Okay.
So you got to understand that his point of view is what's in the Bible, whether you believe it or not. What we have to do is we have to talk in terms of history and archaeology, right? These are two different conversations. So Israel doctrine is not going to necessarily accept history, chronology, right? Archaeology. He's going to accept the Bible. So it becomes a problematic conversation.
Got it.
I accept all that if it line up with the Bible. But if it don't line up with the Bible, because the Bible is primary to me, it may be third or second or whatever to you, but it's primary to me. And if it ain't in the Bible, I'm not going to accept it.
Wow.
Well, but the problem with that, Israel, is that you're accepting things that can't be proven. And so that is the biggest problem. So our people seem to want to know the truth. The only biblical figure that we can almost verify is Hezekiah, right? And
uphill battle, and I don't mind battling uphill. I just got an uphill battle.
Well, yeah, you have an uphill battle on this particular channel, and then you have to also fight the Christians and the not the Christians, because you're more akin to that, the so-called Hebrew Israelites. But our problem is Israel. At some point, you have to show some facts independent of the Bible. That's the problem that we have.
What facts do I need to show on what? He talking about bones. And like I said, the Bible don't speak on bones. If the Bible speak on bones, go give me a scripture and I'll talk about it. If it don't speak on bones, don't speak about bones with me. Because if it ain't speaking about bones, I ain't speaking about bones.
Okay, well, we're talking about, okay, so let's take bones off the table.
The bones in the valley, brother.
Dry bones in the valley ain't got nothing to do with ham.
Okay.
Right. So the problem is when we start looking at archaeology, meaning temples, meaning what they left, meaning writing, those things don't line up with the Bible. We can't find King Solomon. We can't find David. We can't find anything about King Solomon, right?
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, Israel.
If you can't do this and can't do that and I can't do it, then you should put me to a challenge and debate me and show I can't do it, and then you win. It's over with. But if you got the nerves to challenge me and show that I'm a lie, then stop saying I'm a lie. Just shut up and accept.
No, Israel, I'm not saying that you are a liar. Me and you.
I'm talking to the detractor. You're not a detractor. People that try to detract and show that I don't know nothing won't sit down, whoop my tail, and show me I don't know nothing. I don't know.
Right, hold on. Chris, go ahead, Chris. You got the floor. Let's respect each other now from here.
Yeah, we're gonna respect it. I was trying to have a respectful conversation. I guess some people can't shoot the ball with a hand in their face. It's okay though. I'll prove that you don't know nothing. I'll prove to you. We can set up a discussion with me, you, and Sinetter on here, and I'll provide surmountable evidence showing you that the Bible is anti-African and God hates the African. Right there in your doctrine. Do you want to set that up?
So what's the title, what's the date, and what's the time? And please be there on time, because I'm always on time. My mama taught me to be 10 or 20 an hour early if need be, but be there on time. So
when you want to set that up, Sinetter? When you want to set that up, Sinetter?
To y'all next week sometime, this weekend. What? Talk to
me. We can set it up. We can set it up this weekend. We can definitely do it this weekend.
I got a debate on the 6th.
Hey, 4th of July, let's have a bang.
Let's do it. Let's do a 4th of July massacre, because that's all it's going to be.
Okay, I got a debate on the 6th. On the 4th, okay.
Woo!
Fireworks.
So this one, I'm finna cook you, man. All right. So Shanetta, we got this on the 4th. What time?
Fireworks.
On the 4th of July, we should have a 4th of July debate, though. A 4th of July.
That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I'm about, because we saw the other chief, he ran from it.
No, I'm talking
Let me say
about
this right.
based off of 4th of July. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, based on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So can we debate that day, or do you want to make it the 5th or the 3rd or another date or whatever? Because I don't want no misunderstanding of we gonna make a set a date and set a time and ain't nobody there, because that's what happened to my.
Are you good? Are you good for Saturday, Chris?
Yeah, I'm good for Saturday. We could definitely do it on Saturday.
Are you good for Saturday?
What is Saturday? If it's the 6th, I got
yeah.
It's the 6th.
That's the 6th.
All right, let's just be fair. Let's do it next Saturday. You want to do that Israel doctrine? You want to do it Saturday?
That gives y'all time to study and get off. Yeah.
This Sunday on the 7th.
Y'all set the time, y'all set the date, because I'm going to be there. If y'all don't.
Okay, we trying to set it down.
This Sunday, that's the 7th.
Okay, I'm debating the 6th.
Crazy work.
All right,
Crazy work.
Sunday,
Crazy work.
The time, 6 o'clock.
Eastern time or
Eastern time. We all on the Eastern. Oh no, I think we all on Eastern time.
I'm out here in LA, so that'll be 3 o'clock out here. Okay.
Yeah, 6 o'clock Sunday. You ready, Chris? You got it?
Yeah, man, it's easy work, man. It's easy work.
The title again? We write this down.
The Bible is anti-African.
All right. The Bible is anti-African. I like that title.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I like that title.
It's gonna be easy work. I need to brush up anyway.
Yeah.
Make you my punching bag again, Israel doctrine.
Hey, last question, Israel doctrine. I want to ask you about the Talmud. Is that considered authentic or no?
I deal with the KJV only.
Okay.
I'm not into no Hebrew science or none of that stuff. I don't deal with Hebrew stuff. That's why I'm not a Hebrew.
Hey, read the Israel. I'm glad. Read the you see the question somebody got. I think Israel doctrine should clarify. He said he is not a Hebrew Israelite. Does that mean that he doesn't think the Israelites were Hebrew?
No, listen. I know Hebrew history. I know Israelite history. Hebrews come out of Abraham. But when you deal with baptism, transformation, going in water, coming out of water, being a new creature, he kills Hebrew. He put them in water. He baptized them and turned them into Israelites. The world don't know that. They ignorant of that. You looking funny, what you got to say? You don't know about baptism transforming you into a new creature?
Yeah, that's not a...
Bro, you breaking into my conversation again. You don't know.
Brother, there's a delay.
Yo, doo-doo, shut.
There's a delay, Israel. That's all he's saying. He thought you stopped.
Okay, my bad. I'm going to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, calm down a lot, brother. Calm down a lot. Hey, let me ask you, Israel, what do you think about Islam? Because you're sitting right next to a person that's that deals with Islam.
I'm an African liberation theology, aka Black theology. If a melanated person believe it, I ain't got no problem with it, because their problem is with the European. But y'all like black on black crime or African on African crime.
Israel, you crazy. So you telling me, Israel, listen to me, Israel. So are you saying that there are two gods, your God being Yahweh, and then we got my brother, hold on. Then we got our brother La. He say Allah is only one God. Allah is the God. So which one is God? Is it Allah or is it Yahweh? Which one?
Listen,
Yahweh.
Listen. If a melanated person says it, I don't want to argue with it. You know why? Because their argument is with the European. And I'm not European, so I ain't got no argument with them.
Why you say that? Why you say their argument is with the European?
I don't got no argument with them. I'm pro-Israel. I'm not anti-nothing. So therefore, you can be whatever you want to be. I'm not gonna go upside your head because you something else. That's called black on black crime.
I don't think you hear the question, but I'm asking you, brother.
So Israel Doctor, let me ask you a question, brother.
There you go. Get him, brother La.
How do you feel about what's going on now over in Palestine?
Uh-oh.
I don't have a TV.
Oh.
I don't watch TV, so I don't watch the news and I don't watch the.
It's all on YouTube, brother.
I don't be on YouTube looking for it. It's called algorithm. It's not in my algorithm.
So you don't know anything in regards for.
I don't go studying that stuff.
I'm not talking about studying anything. I'm talking about genocide, slaughtering of innocent Muslims.
I
Women,
still gotta
children.
hear about it. Meaning listen, hold up. I gotta hear about it once. I ain't heard about it because it's not in my algorithm and I don't have a TV and I'm not sitting up watching it. So how do I feel about it? I don't feel nothing about nothing I don't know nothing about.
So wait 1 second. So let's go back. Let's go back to the 1800s, right? The 1800s, right? When the Arabs were in control of the region, right? So when the Arabs were in control of the region, all the way down before that, when the Arabs were able to take Jerusalem, right? What about the slaughter of all groups of people except for Muslims during that time period? What about that?
The strong rule. If they were strong and they kicked their tail, hey, what we gonna say? He was too strong, he kicked their tail, we mad at him now? No, he kicked their tail, and if I he'd kick mine too. So I respect power.
Right. So Israel, I was asking Brother Law. So when there was Sharia law, right, and then Ottoman law in that region, in that region, what about the slaughter and the control of all those groups of people during the time of the Arabs?
What people you talking about?
Huh? Say what?
What people you speaking on?
What do you mean? What people I'm talking about? I'm saying the Christians and the Jews in that region when the Arabs were in control. I just want to know. I just want a level playing field, right? So this current situation on genocide of the Palestinian people, nobody likes this, but this is because of old issues. This is on completely old issues, and so it bleeds into the situation. So the big problem with this law is that yes, there is the slaughter of innocent Palestinians, right? But in this particular case, right? I'm just saying, in this particular case, did the Israelis start this particular action at this particular time, or are they trying to finish something? Answer that question to me. Did they start it? Was there a militia of radical Islamists that stormed a festival, right, and killed innocent Israelis? Yes or no?
Are you asking me about Islamists that were brought here, raised
Let's
here?
not call them Islamic. Let's not call them Islamists. I'm just saying radicals. I'm talking about during this current situation that's happening. How did it happen? Who started this current situation? Who started it?
It's a multitudes of different people that started this, but collectively it's going towards one common goal: control.
No. Who started? Was
money
there
and control and land?
Say what?
It's all based on money,
about
control, and land.
No, I'm talking about this current situation that has led to the murder of Palestinians in Gaza. This particular action, who started it?
You can't definitively pinpoint who started it, right?
The Israelis started it. They've been going on with this since 1943, since they inherited that land.
I'm saying this particular action. See, the other actions, there has been a back and forth. There's been a regrouping of the Palestinians. There's been a Palestinian state, right? I'm talking about it all fell apart. Who started this last situation?
The last situation would have had to be the Muslims.
Reggie, respectfully, I'm somewhat being reserved on it because I don't want to get signed at this page flag. You know as well as I do that they control the narrative of this page.
That's right. Oh yeah, it was Iran. It was Iran that gave these militants the operational capacity, right, to attack Israel with rockets, and this squad that went into the festival where they kidnapped the hostages.
That's all on
Now,
CNN.
I am not saying that that's not built up from other issues, but those militants had help from another state, wasn't even Palestine.
Okay, and with that, y'all, I got the roll. We got 3 hours in. I want my brother to close. Kim G.
It was good. Close it out.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
For sure. Yeah, appreciate everybody for coming on in. You know, we always know that these conversations navigate to the religious, dialogue.
Right.
It's perfectly fine. But yeah, we were talking about Diop, Diopian historiography, the Diopian revolution. Shout out to Brother Neil with that ankh on his ring. But we were preaching, Black unity, regardless of what your faith tradition is. Black unity, African empowerment, African development. And I appreciate Sonnetter for allowing me to use this platform to just spread a lot of my knowledge. If you want to support me, hit me up on Cash App, sign up to my Patreon, subscribe to my channel. And, I hope to come on soon to just talk about whatever it is, whether it's the building of the pyramids, whether it's archaeology, material culture, cultural anthropology, whatever it is, because we're bringing in good, on point, accurate, rigorous, scholastic information. We're defending Africana scholarship. We're defending the legacy of our greats. And, we're just continuing, this revolution intellectually, physically, spiritually into the modern 21st century. So, shout out to everybody tuning in. And with that, peace,
Peace. Thank you, brother. All right. Hey, Brother La, in closing, before you leave, Brother La, are you saying that you support the Palestinians over the Israelites, over the Israelis?
First and foremost, always, Allahu Akbar.
You support the Palestinians?
Yes.
So you will fight on the side of the Palestinians?
On behalf of brothers and sisters of the of the Ummah, yes. Those are my brothers and sisters of Islam.
And see, that's our problem right there. That's our problem, Brother La. That we will put our life, our blood on the line for different people, for somebody else other than our own. But we kill let me finish.
Go ahead, brother.
We kill each other at a drop of a dime. We kill each other at a drop of a dime. You don't see no Palestinians standing up, fighting for the life of Black people, brother. Here, fighting for us. Because of our religion got us thinking that, we got to fight for these people. These are our people here. That's religion, brother. They don't come from our mothers.
African
this is totally different. Now, I understand what you're saying, but when we get ourselves together, then maybe we can give a helping hand to someone else. And that's
you understand that, though.
Yes, I do understand that, but I'm not putting my life in the hands for someone else that I know that's not going to do the same for us, brother. Show me where they fighting for us at over here. Show me where you see them rallying for Black people. But we rally for them all day long, brother. Show me where you see Palestinian people in the streets with Amadou Diallo, where the police is shooting down our people and our, show me where they doing that.
Good night, brothers. African liberation theology.
When they do that, but if something happens to them, you will see that's the humanity in us. We love everybody but ourselves, Brother La. If they do that to somebody outside of African American, you will see us flood the street because it's something in our psyche that we say that's wrong. But when they do it to us, you don't see that same love and that same fight. Nobody come to our aid. Dr. John Henry Clark said it best. He said that they took Africa in blood, and the only way we're going to get it back is in blood. That's what he said. I'm just quoting, meaning,
it seems like you do a lot of
meaning that there's no one that's going to save us but us, brother. Go ahead, Brother Lai. You got the last word, and I'm out. Yeah.
What about Brother Reggie?
I know I got one thing, so I got to ask you.
I'm gonna let I'm gonna let Reggie and other brothers speak before I say a word.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let them speak.
Let me say this, okay. Reggie, let me really get this, and I'm gone. So, Sarnetta, if you look at the earth, and Brother Reggie, there's a song called Three Blind Mice and One Cool Cat. And the Sphinx is the cool cat. And to the east is a mice, the Indian that hate black people. To the north is the European mice. And the third mice is the American Indian. Don't none of them like that Sphinx, that cool cat. I'm out with that.
All right. Go ahead, Brother Reggie. Yeah, Reggie.
So, Brother La, and we will see each other sometime in the street, sometime this week. You're going to have to explain to the people what Aslam Teslam is. Now, when the Prophet Muhammad, he was diplomatic. He was sending letters to his enemies, particularly the Byzantine, right?
Be careful, Reggie.
Right? You said what?
Be careful.
Why? What do I have to fear? If that's the case, I'm already dead. So the Prophet Muhammad was sending letters to the Byzantines, right? And other nations to surrender or be saved. Surrender to be saved. That is the doctrine of, sorry, I'm outside. Aslam Teslam. Now, past the Prophet Muhammad.
What does that mean?
Huh?
What does Aslam Teslam mean?
Surrender. You speak Arabic. What does it mean?
I'm asking you, Reggie. I'm just
it's a no. Then you're gonna have to further enlighten the public, right? Okay. But it's a doctrine of the Prophet Muhammad telling his enemies, right, to embrace Islam and be saved, right? Now, I'm not gonna say he did it diplomatically. Now the Caliphites after the Prophet Muhammad, and some of them were engaged in killing the Prophet's own family, right? And the people, say what?
Peace be upon him.
Okay. Those groups of people, I'm being respectful. You're saying that these groups of people did not kill, like I think Ali.
I'm speaking about you. Speaking about the Prophet Muhammad.
I gotta go, y'all. I need y'all to close.
I'm not speaking about the Prophet Muhammad. I said after the Prophet Muhammad. I said the Caliph.
Reggie, come on, man, because I gotta go. I gotta roll.
Okay, I'm close, but I want to let the public know I'm not speaking about the Prophet Muhammad. I'm talking about after the Prophet Muhammad.
I'm just speaking about
this conversation. Huh?
Reggie. What I was basically saying, brother, is this, and I'm not arguing, I'm not feuding with you. I'm saying out of respect. When speaking the Prophet Muhammad's name, it's respectful when speaking to a Muslim to say peace be upon him.
But I don't have to say that.
Okay.
I don't have to say that. You have to say that.
Yeah, because why are you trying to force your beliefs on us, brother?
I'm not forcing.
I don't have to say that. I don't have to say that.
Yeah, you have to say that, brother. The Muslim beliefs, y'all got to say that. We don't believe.
I'm an infidel.
Brother.
I'm an infidel. I'm an African. I'm an infidel.
I'm a kafir, brother. I'm a kafir, brother. So we don't have to say that. You got to say that with love, brother Lob, with respect. Long as we're not disrespecting you as a man or as a person, brother. That's all we saying. We respect.
Brother La, Brother
Reggie,
Lodge,
I'm just
you
messing
speak.
with you, Reggie.
Okay. So you tried me. But you tried me. So Sonetta wants to end the show. We're gonna
I'll
see each
pull
other.
you,
We're
brother.
gonna see each
Reggie,
other
I'll pull you,
Thought-
brother.
Let
in
me
the
let
next couple of days.
Real Thought close us out, brother. Then Brother Lod close out last.
Nothing but love, Reggie.
Oh
Peace.
man, y'all brothers started going in on a different topic at the end, man. All I got to say is this, man. I like peace and love to our people, no matter what you deal with. I don't care if it's Christianity, if it's Judaism, if it's Islam, if you're a Hebrew Israelite, if you're a damn Buddhist, I don't care what you deal with. Just love our people. You hear me? Because when it's really time for it, the people that view us as enemies, they ain't gonna care about none of that. We can debate our eyes black and blue, our skin go pale. They still not gonna care. It's gonna be about when we look at each other in the eyes and we be like, it's when we get that black man head nod. You know when you see your brother, man. Like let's not like I know y'all academic, but just keep in mind what the goal is, man. That's all I got to say. Peace and love, man.
Peace, brother. All right, Brother Lod, you got the last word, brother.
So that what it basically boils down to when we're having these conversations, which especially when you and I is, you perceive every Muslim to be isolated, just to protecting Arabs and no ways giving 110% more than even Arabs, and trying to ostracize any African American Muslim as being quote unquote as somewhat as a black Arab, trying to be more Arabized than Arabs are. When I'm speaking about Islam and I'm speaking about brothers and sisters amongst the Ummah, the family of Islam, they are being my brothers and sisters in the deen. You being my brother in regards to the African diaspora. We're brothers, but we're not brothers in Islam. That's the only difference. And in regards to Palestine, go ahead. You wanted to ask a question, interject?
No, I'm gonna wait till you finish. I'm just holding my hand up to ask you a question.
Yeah, I'm finished. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. I wish I've known you when I was doing my Muslim experiment on 125th Street. A lot of people know I do a lot of experiments, brother. And one of the experiments I did was I was walking up to the African American blacks and I was asking them, is this white boy more your brother because he say assalamu alaikum and took his shahada, but I'm not a Muslim. I follow Kemet. I study this or I study that. I'm not a Muslim, but is he more of your brother? What's your answer to that, brother?
If a brother greets me,
he took his shahada.
No, it's all about a greeting, Sanada. If a brother greets me, assalamu alaikum, as your duty as a Muslim to greet him with a better response back. Wa alaikum
That's not the
salam.
question what I asked you, brother. That's not what I asked you. Here's what I asked you again. Is that Chinese man, that white man, that African man, is they more your brother because they bow down with you in prayer and they have taken a shahada with you in your faith, in your religion, than the non-believer, than me? Are they more your brother than I am? Because I'm a kufa. I'm a kafirun.
You realize the key word that you said?
Yes.
Is this my brother? If I'm standing in Juma, we're standing together and he's making prayer with me and he's making salat with me and we're foot to foot, ankle to ankle with each other. We're making prayer together. Yes, I will perceive that man as being more my brother than you. That's the key.
There you have it, family. Told you. There you have it, family. I don't call it brainwashing, and I don't say it with no disrespect, but I chose to say brain dirty. Because brainwashing is when you get all of that stuff out of you. You know, you got the brainwash.
Why would you say that, Samir?
Because look at what the religion would do to you. Just because he stand by you and
made me a better human being. Made me a better man.
Hold on. Just because he stand with you just because he's staying with you and he pray. But how do you know how I pray? How do you know I'm a righteous man as well? You see? But that white man and that Chinese man and that African man that bowed down with you in prayer, you said that they are more your brother than I am because I don't stand by you and pray like you. You see?
No,
and I don't worship like you worship.
What I said to you, son, you're not going to be able to trip me up and mix up no words to the public and the mass of people that's listening.
Okay, go ahead. Clear it up.
What I said to you was this.
Okay.
Being a brother, as we are, is a difference between being brothers amongst the deen. It's a difference.
What's the difference?
One being brothers amongst the Ummah in regards to Islam being in the Islamic family, and us being brothers in the African diaspora. That's it. You ask me a question, would I perceive a brother more my brother if he salams me?
All right. Now I'm really put you
like half brothers.
Now
like
let me put you on the hot seat for real. Here we go. Here we go. You can only feed one. You can't feed two. I'm hungry. That white man is hungry. But that white man bows down with you in your salat. Who are you feeding? Me or that white boy that bows down with you in prayer? Now you look at my life and you say, well, he ain't living no demonic life or raggedy life. He's a righteous man. I see him. He's humble. He's doing good things in the community. See? Now I can see if I was a piece of if they was a piece of squat. Then you say, oh no, I can't mess with him. He all out there. But you see me, I'm righteous, I'm doing good things, but I'm just not of your faith. Who are you going to feed first? Me or that white man who is your Muslim brother? I'm going to put your ass on the hot seat tonight.
If I'm eating, you can
only feed one. You can only feed one.
If we're all eating.
No, if you're eating and you can only feed one, you only can feed one. Who are you going to feed first? Your white Muslim brother or your brother by nature?
What I would do is, if I'm eating my meal, I would give my meal to both of them.
No, that's not. No, that's not the question, brother. I said you can only feed one. So you would have to choose who is more your brother by nature, not your brother by faith, but who is your brother by nature?
Why would I have to choose between two brothers? Listen, hold on, Sanetta. You have two men that are hungry. I have a meal.
Brother, you missing. No, you missing.
That's my door.
You know what you're doing, brother.
No.
I'm giving you the. Oh man, do y'all see what he's doing, fam? He don't wanna pick or choose. I said you can only feed one. That's all you can feed is one, not both, not separated and share. You can only give it to one. Who are you giving that food to?
One plate of food is more adequate than two brothers that didn't have the meal at all.
Brother, that's not I'm the one that's asking the questions, brother.
And I'm answering the question because you can't ask a question then try to control the narrative on how I answer.
No, yes, I could, because you're not answering my question.
I am.
You're not. You saying both. I never said both. I said only one. But you bring it in both.
Sanetta. Come on.
You are adding in another word. Both. That's not my question to you. Here's my question again. You can only feed one, not both. I didn't bring up both. Who are you feeding? Your brother?
It's like the railroad example.
Yes. Who are you feeding?
You can only do it one way.
Keep it real.
This person save that person with the railroad transition. You can only put it one way. He's asking.
To be honest with you, Sanetta?
Yes.
I will feed the brother. That's hungry.
You'll feed the white boy.
I will feed the brother.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can I say something before we go, sir?
Yes. Yeah, brother.
So I feel where I'm coming from because even though the furthest I've gone into anything Islamic is what the Moors taught me. And then I moved away, right? But what I understand is he's trying to speak from a place of divine love.
Yeah, I know what he's trying to do.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Divine love is you trying to look from the God's eyes. It's you trying to understand what God would want you to do. And Kendrick even mentioned that on his diss track to Drake. He said, considering what God's considering. You don't know nothing about that. Teaching your kids discipline. You don't know nothing about that. That's where Brother Law coming from. He genuinely would not give the whole plate to either one of the black or the white boy. He would split it as long as they were good brothers.
I know what he's saying.
He can't split it. Listen to me. Brother Law cannot, just to be respectful to Brother Law, right? He cannot split it. He has to give it to his Islamic brother, right?
No, that's not true.
The Quran doesn't say. Wait, brother Law. Wait, hold on. You're saying a person who is an infidel.
Reggie, you're going down the rabbit hole.
Oh, see, there you go. But see, a Law, I have to be who I am. What rabbit hole am I going to go in? I could even go worse in the rabbit hole. Actually, people who have left Islam, right? You know what the penalty of leaving Islam is, right? So now this person who is praying with you.
Go ahead, brother.
Yes, what? Yes, what?
What I was going to say to you before, I apologize for breaking your train of thought, brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
No, I want to hear what you have to say, because guess at the end of the day, at the end of what Yami Yama, you're going to have to atone for your deeds and your misdeeds. But what I'm trying to do is I am really trying to help you in your faith. So stay with your faith. Don't get tripped up.
Let me help him. And this is the word, in the words of my teacher, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. They tried to trip Khalid up with this, and Khalid gave the perfect answer. He said, they might be my brother in the faith, but not my brother by nature. And that's all you had to do, brother. When I said, who is more your brother, that white man that bow down and pray to you, and then me, who don't bow down and pray with you?
The white boy that prayed to me?
You were supposed to hit me with, he's just my brother in the faith. But
no,
he's
the white man that prayed to me.
Pray with you.
Pray with you.
See?
Because he took
in Islam, you have to be precise.
But that's what I said, brother. I said that. I said the white boy bows down and took his shahada and prayed with you. That's what I said. So he's only your brother by faith, but not your brother. Me and you are brothers by nature, bro. As long as I'm doing the right thing, I'm not out there doing no crazy stuff. Yes, yeah, that's right. Kwame and Nkrumah.
I disagree. I disagree. I mean, I disagree. His faith commands him, right, to win over the those who are the non-believers by force, by taxes, etc. Right? You can think that you is his brother, but in his heart, he can't take you as a
damn, that's
in
sad.
his heart, he cannot.
That's not a good
He cannot, because you have left Islam. So you certainly, if it was just me and you, and I'm a disbeliever and a big mouth, and you left Islam, your throat will be cut first, so I can watch and be feared. So then the time that comes to me, I could think about it, right? So the fact of the matter is, those are the things in the command. Now people can change it for today to be kind of comfortable. It's just like the old Hebrew laws when they talk about beating a person to death, right? Like you're supposed to kill a homosexual and stuff like that. These are the old laws. So I'm going to tell you, I respect Brother La. I respect him, right? He's my brother, but I know I may not be able to be his brother. That's the way that we walk, right?
That's true, Reggie. Come on.
Reggie.
I keep my eyes open. Because if a sheikh or somebody asks him, he cannot lie. He cannot lie. He has to tell the truth.
Oh, so
right?
you say if a sheikh come by him and say, yo, I want you to take his head, he gonna have to take your head, Reggie?
Well, I won't say it like that, but I will say that he has to take advice from the head of the Ummah.
Is more intelligent than what you think. He would look at the dude and say, brother, I'm not doing that. Feel a lot.
I wouldn't. Let's not put law on the test for that. I'm saying in general, if they are reading that book, right? That book is holy to them. That gives them the key to their afterlife. I respect Brother La. I'm his brother, but I know in his heart he can't be my brother. Right? I know this. Right?
Sir 5, I have 51. Don't take unbelievers as your friend. Don't take unbelievers as your friend. And with that, peace and black power, salam alaikum, and all that good stuff.
Brother La's my brother. Peace.
From the trendsetter, you did it again, man. HOK Field Marshal, None of them can but a dance on the top. Revelation, violate the general. Head up in a blood clot funeral home. Anchor the AK, Jabari got the chrome. Hector we say how we sending them home. Regina the alley with a Cuban and a galley. Send you back on Nile Valley with a shot in your toe intellectually. How click the link if your scholarship stop him. Or just wanna make you cry with the truth. No lie, my youth, him a real historian. 21 gun salute for commission. Not a brother, a hustle, a move like all I found the black woman not all like Ulcanadian, a fast sister freedom. I don't hold panel, no one time for Bible thumping. The minute them see me come, reviation set. From here the trendsetter. None of them can bother dance on it. None of them can bother dance on it. Them got a podcast but saw better.
Yeah. Coast to coast we be banging. Bringing all this knowledge we be slanging. In the HOK we don't do no entertaining.
The truth, speak the facts.
What the niggas just a layman. Better get on one accord. The future can be yours. Ancestors push you more. We gotta go explore the sciences and math. The future's based on class. You bout to catch my wrath. We turning up this track.
In the dark minds of the light.
The dark heart still fight. We gotta make this right. Talk right now. We learn how to stand up and stand proud. No man down. We fam now. House of the country, my clan now.
From here the trendsetter. None of them can bother dance on it. None of them can bother dance on it. Them got a podcast but saw better.
When I look at you niggas, I see what I'm not. Go take him, a little bit of her, mix it with them, I put them in a pot. You still can't get none like me. It might sound the same, but it's unlikely. One white tee, if I lift it up, then you niggas gonna see what it gun might be. I thought I told ya. Affirmation, revelation, we some soldiers. Signetter put this team together, now it's over. We got the weight of the world up on my shoulder. When you get conscious information, hearts turn colder. Now look at these trappers who rapping the same, so stuck in their lane, systemically, chemically. I'm thinking something is wrong with their brain. As long as they paid and flowing the chain, I got nothing to say. They in love with the gang. I traded my gang for change, and now that I changed a few things, still say the same.
From here the trendsetter. None of them can bother dance on it. None of them can bother dance on it. Them got a podcast but saw better.